now.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I will be calling the meeting to order for the San Gabriel City Council meeting on Tuesday, June 2nd. The meeting is being called to order at 6:38 p.m. Closed session report. I'm going to turn it to our City Attorney Lemire, who will report on the closed session.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. The board met in closed session. I should explain, this is a report for what occurred in closed session at a special meeting that took place immediately prior to this meeting. The City Council met in closed session to discuss conference with labor negotiators regarding the employee organizations listed on the agenda. The City Council received a report from the negotiator. No reportable action took place. Madam Mayor, that concludes the report.
Thank you. Okay, tonight's Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Vice Mayor Lau.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I just happen to have a flag right next to me. So yeah, if you can face me or face your flag in your home, and please place your right hand to your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may see it.
Our Vice Mayor is always very resourceful. Thank you for having that flag. Next, clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Menchaca,
Here.
Vice Mayor Liao,
Here.
Councilmember Ding,
Yeah.
Councilmember Harrington,
Here.
Councilmember Pu.
Here.
Okay. Just a reminder, tonight's meeting is live streamed on cable channel 3 and our online platforms. Please email all public comments to cityclerk@sgch.org no later than the time the items considered by the council tonight. Comments received after items have been considered will not be read into the record. Comments will be read by Assistant City Clerk Marilyn Bonas for up to 3 minutes each. Agenda items will be introduced by Chief City Clerk Sharon Clark. Okay, let's see. Approval of item 1, approval of agenda order. Again, our City Attorney Lemire has an announcement.
Yes, Madam Mayor, it's my understanding that there is an item that we need to add to the agenda. As you all know, the only way we can add items to the agenda after it's posted is if there is a finding that the need arose after the posting of the agenda regarding the item, and that it pertains to city business that must be considered prior to the next meeting. My understanding is that Chief Harris would like to give a status update regarding the protests and related events surrounding the protests as part of a briefing. I think this is proposed to be, looking at my agenda here, it's next to the COVID briefing on the agenda as proposed. And again, obviously the need arose after posting the agenda because these are exigent and emerging circumstances that have, and a lot has changed in the world since this agenda was posted last week. So with that, we're recommending the addition to the agenda. Again, this requires a 2/3 vote of the City Council and a finding that the need arose after posting the agenda and that the matter must be considered before the next regular meeting.
Okay. So I have a motion by Councilmember Pu and a second by Councilmember Lau. Is there any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Ding,
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Pu,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Liao,
Aye.
Mayor Menchaca.
Aye.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Next item, please.
Presentations. Item A, proclamation congratulating San Gabriel graduates. Presentation will be made by Mayor Menchaca.
Thank you so much. Well, as a city, we wanted to publicly acknowledge all San Gabriel 2020 graduates, whether they're graduating from middle school, high school, or college. These students deserve to be recognized for their achievements. This group is now part of history, and they've experienced extreme interruptions in their educational and social lives due to the COVID health crisis, and now with the Justice for George Floyd movement. So tonight, we're going to honor and celebrate their accomplishments with a proclamation and a light display at the Mission Playhouse. I'm going to pass it on to Rebecca so she can share a little bit more about what we plan to do as a city for our 2020 graduates. Rebecca, could you take it from here?
Yes, good evening, Mayor Menchaca and members of the City Council. The city would like to honor our graduates, and in doing so, we'll have a projection on the Mission Playhouse, which, as you know, is an iconic venue and location in our city. And we'll have a projection displayed to honor our graduates. And we had actually planned to have that this week and provide an opportunity for the graduates to come and safely, I'll say, take pictures in front of the projection. We had planned to do that this week, but in light of the curfews and the current situation in our community, at this time, pending any drastic changes, we are looking at the projection happening next week, beginning the 10th and ending on the 14th. And the projection will be on the Playhouse from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And we would invite any graduates, if they are so inclined, to either drive by and safely take a picture, or if they do want to stop and take a photo of their graduate in front of the projection on the Playhouse, they can do so. We just ask that everyone practice social distancing and wear a face mask when appropriate, and that all of those things be done safely so that we can continue to provide that honor for our graduates. So that's all I have, Mayor, unless there's any questions.
Okay, great, thank you. It's going to be a great, I call it an Instagrammable moment. And so I'm hoping a lot of our graduates take advantage of that opportunity. Also, we have a proclamation for tonight. The proclamation will be posted on social media. So again, our graduates and their families could see. I wanted just to read the last two paragraphs of the proclamation, and it goes as follows. Now, therefore, I, Denise Menchaca, Mayor of the City of San Gabriel, California, on behalf of the City Council, Vice Mayor Chin Ho Lau, Council Members Tony Ding, John R. Harrington, and Jason Pu, do hereby encourage the people of San Gabriel to greatly honor the San Gabriel graduates of the class of 2020. We acknowledge that this class of students has excelled despite the enormous challenges set before them. They are thereby worthy of great commendation from their family, friends, and community. On behalf of the City of San Gabriel, we wish them the absolute best in all of their future efforts. Furthermore, in celebration of their achievements, we do hereby proclaim June 6, 2020 as Day of the Class of 2020 to honor the graduates of San Gabriel. So hopefully, everyone could feel the love from our city. I know each of the high schools and the middle schools and the colleges, they've all had different plans. Some have already taken place, the virtual graduations, but there are still some in the works. The drive-through graduations, I believe Gabrielino's having one in the next couple of weeks. But I also wanted to spend the time right now to just recognize the impact that our 2020 graduates have had on the council. Currently, 3 of the 5 council members have 2020 graduates in their lives. We have Councilmember Pu, whose daughter Sophia is a graduate from Jefferson Middle School. We have Councilmember Harrington's daughter, Christina, from Gabrielino High School. And my daughter, Roxanne, graduated from Syracuse University. So although we've had to kind of adjust these milestones, our pride is still strong for our families. And, go conquer the world, class of 2020. We wish you all the best. And, there'll be many moments that you'll be able to celebrate. So thank you. I was going to ask if any of my council colleagues would like to say anything. If not, we can move on. I don't want to. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. So keep an eye out, and hopefully you'll take advantage of the Mission Playhouse. Well, I call it a lighting display of sorts. If you get a chance, at least drive by and look at it. It's really special, and as Rebecca said, that's iconic, and no one else has a Mission Playhouse like we do. So take advantage of that moment and put that in your album, or I guess you don't call them albums anymore, but whatever you do, your Dropbox, take advantage of the moment. So thank you so much. Okay, next item, please.
The next presentation is Justice for George Floyd briefing. Presentations will be made by Police Chief Harris and Fire Chief Wallace.
Okay, Chief Harris.
Madam Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the council, good evening. This will be a briefing from the PD side of this event. There's a lot going on, as people can probably see on the news. We are proud to report here in San Gabriel that we have had no incidents related to this event to speak of. However, we are fully staffed and working on a tactical deployment of 12 hours on and 12 hours off until such time as we can return to normal operations. We are working in concert with all of the other LA County chiefs, and in particular the San Gabriel Valley mutual aid agreement areas to ensure that we are fielding the resources necessary to protect this community. And so far, we've enjoyed the fruits of that protection. We are 100% staffed, fully equipped to go out and manage this process. You will see, members of the community will see many police units in the field. We are hoping that helps people feel safer and not less so. Sometimes when we see a lot of police in one area, we tend to think there must be a problem somewhere close by. We want to portray the absolute opposite. We want to demonstrate that we have many officers in the field so that you can feel protected and sleep well under the blanket of the protection that will be provided this evening. We are, again, working in concert with some of the larger agencies, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, LAPD, and certainly all of the mutual aid areas. And we are closely monitoring all of the goings on around us in the surrounding cities. And though we're having protests, we want to reiterate that here we want to make sure that people understand there is a right to protest that we support. But from a law enforcement perspective, we will take a hard stance on any lawlessness within the city. But we want to promote those people to take advantage of their right and privilege to protest and stand and have their voices heard, and we will support that evolution. Additionally, there is a curfew that has been put in place by LA County. That curfew order came out again today. It will be in place from 6 p.m. this evening till 6 a.m. in the morning, and again, it will be reassessed tomorrow by members of the county emergency personnel. We have not enacted our own ordinance for curfew. However, we are working under the umbrella of the county ordinance, and therefore we'll be enforcing that ordinance. I want to make it clear to the residents that there's a difference between enforcing and active enforcing, and I want to make that distinction here. Enforcing meaning that we are recognizing that there's a curfew and that we have to respond to it and make sure that we're doing it, but we would like for people to voluntarily comply so we avoid any issues. But active enforcement would mean that we would be administratively citing folks who are in violation. And we have decided to do that only in egregious cases. So this community is to be commended because through COVID and through this event, everyone has been doing a really good job of standing up and meeting their requirements and doing their part. And we hope that will continue. I think that is it for the police department on my report, and I'll be glad to take any questions from the council.
Well, let me pass it on to the Chief, Chief Wallace, and then we'll ask council for questions, if you don't mind. Chief Wallace?
Good evening, Mayor Mataka, Vice Mayor Liao, and members of council. I'll give you an update tonight on the fire department's response to the events surrounding the George Floyd incidents, and also a little bit of what we've been doing from the emergency management perspective. Starting Saturday, when we really had a good handle on what was going on and where there was a great potential for events to affect our city, we staffed an extra firefighter in each engine for a total of 4. On Sunday, in consultation with the city manager and the police chief, we decided to open up and staff the emergency operations center. We opened up and went to a level 2, which is a mid-range staffing. We opened up a fire branch, a law enforcement branch, and a logistics branch, as well with 3 PIOs on duty that night. Starting Sunday, I put the fire department on a tactical alert and staffed an extra engine, an extra rescue ambulance, and an extra battalion chief to give us a sort of task force configuration that would be sitting in our city ready to respond and mitigate anything that might come up in our jurisdiction. That staffing has continued through tonight. We are going to reevaluate that tomorrow morning and see where we'll go with that, but we will most likely start moving back to a normal staffing plan on the fire side. We are continuing to monitor events. The area C chiefs are in contact once an hour, talking about what's going on in our cities and any movements. And I'm very happy to report that since last night, the hourly updates have all been really talking about peaceful protests and in compliance and cooperation with curfews in the cities. We also did submit today an initial damage estimate to the state OES to help defray our costs. We've submitted an initial reimbursement request of $250,000 to cover staffing costs that have been incurred since Saturday night. As you know, both the county and the state have made local emergency and disaster declarations, and we are covered under those, so we do not have to do our own declaration. With that, that'll conclude my report, and I'm ready for questions.
Great, thank you both chiefs. Vice Mayor Liao, would you like to kick it off? You just have to turn on your mic, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So first question for Chief Harris. Did we send any our law enforcement to City LA as a mutual aid or no? We didn't send anybody?
To date, we have not been requested to send any units. However, in our mutual aid agreements, if we are requested, we will send personnel.
Okay. Yeah, I got so many questions from constituents. Number one is, yeah, they saw police, try to kind of, I would say, fighting with the protesters, and these are the peaceful protests, and I support them, because they're doing it for the justice, inequity, and racial discrimination. They got 100% of rights to protest. But there's another group of people, they're rioters and rooters, and actually organized by a different group. But the question from the residents is, well, when you see the peaceful protesters, you see policemen. But then when the rooters broken into the windows and doors, we don't see policemen. And why is that?
Well, I can't speak on behalf of the other agencies. I can only speak on behalf of what occurs or what may occur here. The commitment that we have is that we are going to protect the members and businesses of this community to every extent possible, given our maximum effort. We want people to protest freely and exercise that right. And we will support that effort, make it so that they can exercise those rights. But we will take a hard stand when it comes to looters or anyone who comes to promote lawlessness within the community. We will take a hard stand, and you'll see a different response from the police department. So as the other police chiefs that are engaged right now with people downtown, LAPD and some of those others, I would urge some of the constituents to, if they're looking at the news, they're running a loop on what LAPD's chief is doing with regard to the activities in LA, So there's a lot of information being put out right now if they want to get that. But I'll be more than happy to discuss with any member of this community what our activities are. They can call me or my command staff directly, and there will be complete transparency.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Lau, I just want to make sure it's clear to everyone who's listening that none of that activity has taken place in San Gabriel. It's all other cities that we've been
Exactly.
watching. Okay, just want to
we
clarify.
don't,
Thank
we
you.
don't have
We
any
haven't had
protests
any.
at all, not in San Gabriel, period. So we're very peaceful for a few nights. So, well, another question is, because these rooters, actually, there's only one that got caught carrying was a hammer, but in the social media, they show, well, these group of people, they put up the bricks and rocks on the sidewalk beforehand, so they know where they going to, and they all have the weapons to break into the stores. So it's just time to tell our people, if you see anything like that on the sidewalks and it's not under a construction site, then we should report to police right away, because apparently it's organized. So what do you think about this, this breaks that lay along on the sidewalks?
The standard doctrine I put out is see something, say something. Make sure you're letting us know ahead of time so that we can come out and protect your right to peaceful protest. If we don't do those things, those people who come into the community to do those things, the harm and the lawlessness will prevent your right to protest. It will be them that create a situation where the protest may have to be shut down or unlawful assembly declared. So see something, say something so that we can prevent any disruption to the protests or any unlawful disruption or any law enforcement disruption. And I think we'll get the best outcome.
Thank you, Chief. Last question, because again, they asked me this question about, why don't all the cities request for National Guards, to make sure our stores are safe? But yeah, I told them we don't have the power to request National Guard. I don't think none of the cities, maybe LA, I don't even think city of LA has the power, probably through governor and, asking for federal aid. And what do you think if it comes to war situation, how can we request for National Guards?
We actually do have the power to request for the National Guard in states of emergency. However, there's a process in place that right now the sheriff is the coordinator for Los Angeles and Orange counties. So the way that process works most fluently is that to make sure that we have that person making the requests on behalf of the cities within the county. So all of the agencies in the county are participating in the Emergency Operations Center, and we all have access to make those requests, and then they're funneled up through the person who's assigned to do that, who at this time is the sheriff. But if circumstances dictate and it gets to the point where we have some significant emergencies where we need to make direct requests, we do have the authority to do that.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Councilmember Harrington.
Thank you, Mayor. I had some similar questions, Chief, a little different though. I was actually on a call today. There was a briefing that they invited a lot of people to from the White House. And it was with Ken Cuccinelli, who's the Secretary of Homeland Security, a couple deputy directors from the FBI. We had some marshals on the line, and they were very focused on what cities can do. One of the things that they said, and I don't know if we've done this, is they said there are a lot of federal resources, and in several areas across the country, cities have actually called in federal resources like ATF officers and deputized them, FBI officers, and they're willing to work locally. So I don't know if that's something we've ever thought of or anything, that we could do, but some of the cities were small. I mean, talking 15,000, 20,000. And the reason it came up is they invited a bunch of smaller cities like us because, like, say you're outside of LA, you don't have the resources of LA, or especially like in the Midlands, like in Kansas, there's one mayor was 30 miles outside of Kansas City, they're a population of 15,000. They can't handle, and there's actually been threats of, going into the smaller communities. So I don't know if you've tapped any of those resources or if you've talked to anybody about that.
Actually, we are interacting right now as an area C. It's all the San Marino, Alhambra, San Gabriel, Monterey Park, and a few others up North Glendale, Burbank. We have tapped into the DEA, who has made an offer to supply us with federal officers that can augment our efforts in what we're doing to deal with this situation. We are meeting with their special agent in charge on Thursday, but those resources have been made available to us. And as we do the planning, we'll find the areas that have the need, and we will tap into that according to the need.
Yeah, because I think that goes really underreported in the media that these resources have actually already been mobilized. And I think that's something we should actually provide in our update. It's two things. Number one, it shows we're prepared. And number two, you never know, it might dissuade people to think, oh, San Gabriel's a soft target or a small target, because that's actually what they're doing right now. Some of these agitators, they're actually looking for soft targets. They're looking for people that may not be prepared. And if they know we're ready and it's a phone call away, the information I got is they could be in our city within an hour to two if they're called, because they're staging in downtown LA.
The group that we're talking to, they are in LA, but there's a whole lot of information that I probably wouldn't release to the public simply from an operational perspective. But we can discuss how to make sure that we let the public know that we've bolstered our abilities.
Yeah, I actually see that as a deterrence. I don't mean operational. I just mean the fact that we are prepared if something, because I've had constituents ask me, like, what is San Gabriel going to do? You barely have enough officers. I said, don't worry about that. We have mutual aid, but we also have federal resources available to us. And another big aspect is the cyber aspect. The city of Minneapolis, St. Paul has had huge cyber attacks, denial of service. So I don't know whether we're prepared for anything like that. So what they do first is they come in and they do the cyber attack before they come in and do their actual physical violence. I mean, they could literally shut communications down.
I missed the very last part. It came in computerized. Can you just repeat that, please?
Yeah, so a tactic that these folks are using, these agitators, is actually cyber attacks prior to physical violence. And so they come in and they may get into our systems and try and shut down our communications internally. So I don't know if we have plans for that or what we would do.
We have planned for that. It's a rough plan. We have an IT section that has tried to block off via firewall.
Excuse me. This sounds like the kind of discussion that might be more appropriate for closed session. If we're talking about security countermeasures and so on, I would recommend we save that one.
All right. So when we get questions, we just say, sorry, we can't discuss that to the public.
I think generally okay, but it felt like we were about to get into details of our systems, and I would just caution against that.
Well, I think it goes along the lines, Keith, that there are actually federal resources for that too. They actually will come in and supplement us if we ask for it. There's a whole bunch of things out there. I think and I can send a link to the chief. There's a bunch of resources that they gave us today.
From a law enforcement perspective, I'll say that we're aware of it, sir, and I can talk to you about some of the details offline.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Does that conclude your questions, council member?
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right. Council member Ding.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Okay. Thank you, the chief. The people also, they got concerns. So how can we know if just in case the protests come to our city? So they have if the peaceful protester, they they need to request the city, they have to get a permit, or they can just coming down right away, get a protest. That's the first question.
Well, there are a couple of pieces to that. People have the right to demonstrate as long as they're not violating the right of way, the public right of way. So I'm not sure that we're going to stop peaceful protests to hold people accountable for getting a permit. But there are some ordinances, I believe, that require people to come and get a permit in advance that gives them the rules and tells them exactly how, where, and when, ensuring that they don't block traffic and things like that. I think we're in unprecedented times where we may need to be able to allow this venting of the anger so that we can get to the root of the problem. And so we'll manage that and try to put that information out to folks. Most of these demonstrations are happening organically, and I don't think that anybody would want to come down and get a permit anyway, given the
prevent something happen like business area, probably they can put on the wall, protect their property, something like that, if they give to them some enough time to prepare.
There's a
Calls already.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. We've had actually very few calls regarding the issue, and some of you are on our listserv. We have been sending out updates to our database. We sent one yesterday. We also sent one today notifying businesses regarding the curfew and also giving them our phone number to call should they need any information or assistance. Actually, I'd say the phone calls have been minimal. We haven't had many inquiries coming into us from our businesses.
Yeah. My point is just in case we got the information, maybe some protests come from the LA. Okay, so if we have a website, but some business owner they don't know what's happened, right? So what's the method we can deliver this kind of information to the whatever area they go to the protest, protect our local business and the local resident? That's my point. So how can we make more efficiency to let them know that?
Council member, if we need to, we can contact each of our businesses directly. So if we were to, and I'm sure the chief and I would coordinate that effort, if we were to be notified that there's a potential threat in a specific area that may impact the businesses in that area, we would be the first to coordinate that effort and figure out a plan to make sure we're doing outreach to those direct business owners and making sure they're aware of what's happening in that area. To date, we have not had that type of threat raised, and we hope that continues to be the case. If anything changes, we would certainly make it a top priority to notify our businesses immediately.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Councilmember Ding. Councilmember Pu.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank Chief Harris and Chief Wallace, as well as our city manager, Mark Lazaretto, for their response to the situation. I know they spent one very late night at our emergency operations center and also, a half night, I guess, in their last night. And also all the men and women of all of our public safety groups, because it has been a time when we've been on high alert, and I have to say, luckily we've not had any of these incidents in the city of San Gabriel. By incidents, I mean more the lawlessness, the looting, the rioting. As the chief said, we support the legitimate right of protesters to peacefully protest. I absolutely do as well, and I think that our greatest risk, or what we've seen and what we need to continue to be vigilant on about, are crimes of opportunity, where some of these some criminals or others know that law enforcement resources are stretched thin at this point, and therefore are looking at different places to go to be able to burglarize and or loot. I have to say, I was proud to see Chief Harris at the press conference yesterday with Sheriff Villanueva, LAPD Chief Michael Moore, District Attorney Jackie Lacey, and the LA County Chiefs. You did a fine job, sir, and I think our men and women have all done a very fine job in keeping the city of San Gabriel safe. So on behalf of just myself and the community, I'd say, thank you very much at a time of uncertainty and in a time of anxiety, that I feel like our team has done a fantastic job. So thanks very much.
That's it. Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Pu. Well, I was just going to say along the same lines, first of all, to Chief Harris, I watched the press conference and I shared it with a lot of friends. And, we were very proud to see you there, to speak so eloquently and to really deliver that message that had to be said, which is, we will not allow opportunists to distract from the message. And I was really happy to hear you say how, we all should be supporting nonviolent, peaceful protesters because they have a real message. It's a real issue that has to be dealt with. And but this is, the distractions that are taking place, the looting, the criminal activity, they're mutually exclusive. That does have nothing to do with it, and they're just taking advantage of the opportunity. But thank you again for being there, for representing your group. You were there as make sure, because I was corrected today, you are the second vice president of the Chief of Police Association. So thank you so much for being there, but I look at you as San Gabriel. so that's how I saw you. So thank you. I saw San Gabriel up there, so I was very proud to see that. I too wanted to thank the whole team, law enforcement, firefighters, the staff, because you've really had to pivot so quickly from the COVID pandemic, which is still going on, to all these, with the whole movement that's taking place. And I know that you've been on high alert. I think one of the things the feedback I've been getting is people are getting they're very anxious, obviously. They're very concerned. We had, for example, some helicopters the other night. It was really in an adjacent city. It wasn't in our city, but people were very anxious. They thought something was going on here in our community. And I think somehow we need to start communicating that. And I don't know the right answer, chiefs, but I wanted to at least bring that out. When you have helicopters hovering around, you right away think, oh no, there's a protest, and it's going to go awry, and it's here, but it wasn't. It was actually it was a home invasion that took place in the neighboring city, but it took over an hour. And those helicopters just felt like they were in San Gabriel, but they were not. They were in next door. Also, there's been some burglaries, and again, I've called you to let you know. Was that looting? Because in one instance, the door was bashed in. It looked like someone was trying to loot. Another case, I think it was a cash register that was stolen. And so I just wanted to have the Chief Harris, kind of explain that. Amongst everything that's going on, the pandemic, the curfew, the movement, there are still just regular burglaries taking place too. And that people should, not be afraid to call, because I've had some constituents say, well, they're too busy, I don't want to call them. Well, if you're having a burglary, it's important to call our police. And so if you can just kind of just say a few words along those lines to let our residents know that you're still there, and to a certain extent for our firefighters too. You have a medical emergency, please call. They are there still to help you. This is public safety. It's important for them to reach out. But I'll turn it to Chief Harris first.
Our priority, both police and fire, is to make sure that we're protecting the residents, the visitors, and the businesses of this city. That is our first priority. We've had to kick that up a notch in order to ensure that we're helping those around us, so some of that doesn't bleed back over onto us. But our first responsibility is to take care of you folks, and we want to make sure that we get every call, respond to every need, and get the things done that need to get done. So nothing has changed in that regard. We want to make sure that if you have an emergency, you are calling. There should be no hesitation. We are here to serve you. We don't get that call and say, oh, shucks, I wish they hadn't called, or something like that. Our whole role is to be eager to get to you, to serve you, and that's what this department will do. Our mantra is all the way up, and we're going to fulfill that. The same thing with fire. We are working well with fire and responding to their calls to ensure that we can provide for the safety of their equipment and their safety to make sure they're getting there to handle these calls for service. So please call us. You're going to see more activity. You'll probably hear more helicopters. You may see different types of vehicles and things driving through town. But that's just efforts rolling in to take care of problems all over the county. If there is anything major happening here, we have communications apparatus such as Nixle, such as our Twitter account, such as other city information portals that will get information out to people rapidly, and so that we can take care of that business. So make sure you're calling. We are going to respond to your calls. Nothing will go unhandled by police or fire.
Thank you, Chief Harris. Chief Wallace, is there anything you would like to say?
I would just follow on the heels of Chief Harris's last statement that we are here, we're responding, we're ready to go. And no matter what the conditions, we're going to be out there to meet your needs, meet your expectations with excellent service. So we are here. We have a great partnership with our everyone in the city, and we're ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, that concludes the, oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Pu.
I just wanted to confirm with the chiefs. So in the event of an emergency, if a business owner or a resident, does need emergency services of some kind, can you confirm if not dialing 911 is still the best way to get a hold of the response that you need?
Yeah, I think I can speak again on behalf of Chief Harris, but yes, 911 is your first access and your best access to getting a response from police or fire.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, next agenda item, COVID-19 briefing. Presentations will be made by, let's start with Chief Wallace, followed by Chief Harris, and then our city manager. So Chief Wallace.
Good evening again, Mayor and Vice Mayor, members of council. Steve Wallace, Fire Chief here in San Gabriel again. I'm happy to report tonight that the fire department is still 100% healthy and has had no exposures or cases of COVID within our department that we know about. In the last week, we have responded to only 2 cases of suspected COVID in the field. I don't have the outcomes of those, whether they were confirmed or not, but looking at our overall numbers, I haven't seen those added to the count. As far as the skilled nursing facilities in town, that is leveling off as well. The Royal Vista situation is much calmer this week. They have had a total of 19 staff test positive, 51 patients, and they went from our last report, I believe it was at 9 deaths up to 13 deaths. They now have a patient census in the facility of less than 20. So they are continuing to move people out in an effort to stop any more spread and be able to do a mass decontamination before they repopulate that facility. There are no other cases in skilled nursing facilities in San Gabriel that we're aware of. And we were able to offer some assistance and references in getting Broadway Healthcare hooked up with some testing, and now they are doing mass testing in that facility as well. They're doing all the patients and staff. And at this point, there's been no positive cases. We should still have an update on that later this week as we do make the rounds on Thursday afternoons. We actually talk to all the administrators and director of nursing and get updates on their counts. And that's what I have for the COVID update this week.
Great. Chief Harris.
Also proud to announce that the police department is providing service 100% healthy. We've had no exposures. We have multiple units out in the field as a result of the other incidents. So from a COVID perspective, that's enlightening so that we have a lot of service without a whole lot of exposure, hopefully. Not a whole lot of changes in the way that we're conducting the business. With regard to that, the County Emergency Operations Center has changed its operational plans to deal with a dual event kind of process. So we're still working out of the county EOC on the COVID incident. The COVID crisis is not over, so we're still addressing it with the same fervor. We want to make sure we remind folks that it is still of the utmost concern for the service members and our executive team. We are having the overlap from a scheduling perspective. So again, the mission is bifurcated. We're addressing both issues, but there are no significant hikes in crime. There has been a tapering off of some of the domestic violence spikes that we had a week or so or two back. So we're starting to enjoy probably a little bit of relief as the county started to open up, or the state started to open up some of the COVID restrictions. We are still operating without our staff being able to avail themselves of holidays and vacations, including the command staff. We are here to make sure we support 24 hours and instill that confidence in you. And there are no other significant issues to report from the PD.
Thank you, Chief. Mark?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of things for the council and the community tonight. First of all, City Hall is slowly moving towards a reopening. We look to reopen sometime around mid to late June. Our sneeze guards are almost complete in our City Hall lobbies, and we've added those to 2 of the 3 counters and expect to have the 3rd counter done by the end of the week. We are still providing almost every city service virtually or over the phone or online or through our website. If somebody absolutely needs to, we can set an appointment, but we're trying to encourage folks to not come in only because of their safety and the safety of employees. When we do open back up, we will be opening up with all of our social distancing measures that offices and businesses follow throughout the city. And we'll announce how that happens and when that happens on our social media channels. I do want to remind folks, as Chief Harris kind of intimated, and Mayor, you did as well, that over the last couple of days, our focus has been on the civil unrest. And so we've kind of lost sight of the need for coronavirus measures. But it is important to practice social distancing, practice hygiene, and wear your masks. With our reopening, the worst thing we can have is for us to have to go back into it quickly and have this on again, off again. So it's important that people practice all those measures. And that's what will keep us allowing our businesses and our community and our world to reopen. And finally, I just want to point out a silver lining that's happened with our COVID-19 response. And I think I speak for both chiefs that, you know, all of our departments and cities have been in close contact before any of this happened. But the COVID-19 case has forced all of our communities and cities to work more closely together than we ever have. And we're on calls and we know each other, you know, by face and by name. And we have personal contact information for all of our counterparts like we never have before. And so while the recent civil unrest and the way we've had to deal with that has been difficult and a tragedy for a lot of folks, we were able to respond very quickly, and we have communication open with all of our neighbors. And so I want to point out that we've become already stronger for dealing with all of these issues that we're dealing with. And we've been working, me specifically, with our city manager counterparts, and vow to continue that period of cooperation so that when things happen, when they will, and we know they will in the near future, that we will be ready for whatever comes and we'll collaborate and cooperate. So that's my little bit of silver lining for the day. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions, and both chiefs are happy to answer questions from the council on coronavirus.
Okay, let's start with Councilmember Ding.
Yeah, the COVID-19 is so far, I hear the report, it's pretty good. And also I appreciate on the COVID-19, we also have the situation for the protest. The protests, yeah, peaceful protest is good, but we don't like as unlawful looting. But I really appreciate the city manager Mark, Chief Harris, and Chief Warris. They did a very good job, and that I remember on the Saturday night, it's have like every 1 hour update. I really appreciate. So yeah, that's if we don't update, I had to fall asleep. So I call them Mark too. So because we have the good PD department, 5 department, and this Mark the leadership. Yeah, I appreciate. Okay, so continue work together. Like I like the Mark say and the previous. It's because this COVID-19 that let our city team get together more, communicate together to keep our city safe. Yeah, I appreciate. continue do it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Harrington.
Sorry about that. Had the mic off. No, I have no further comments. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay. Councilmember Pu.
No questions for me either. Thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor Lau.
Just too many questions. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is for Chief Wallace. You know, you probably noticed this county supervisor appoint is called Inspector General to inspect all the nursing homes. But you know, as I understand, in the past, in the LA County Health Department, they already have a unit. I don't know how many members, maybe hundreds. They just go out routinely to inspect all these nursing homes. So what's this position? What's this Inspector General will do to help this situation? Do you know?
Yeah, I believe the Inspector General was created to corral and really head the efforts to get into all these facilities. The DPH has been saying from the beginning of this pandemic that they're very concerned about the populations in those facilities and that they were going to test everyone and they were going to get to every facility. And they've really been overwhelmed. There's such a vast number of people. I think they've been overwhelmed, and even given it their best effort, it's been a bit scattered and inconsistent. So with some direction and coordination, I believe this position will really be able to hit this and work on the problem that in those facilities. I mean, as you know, 50% of the deaths have come out of skilled nursing facilities. And a lot of that was due to lack of testing and lack of PPE and lack of proper PPE use. So I think with some more oversight at the local level, which you have to also remember that these facilities are all licensed and regulated at the state level, not at our local level. So there probably will, my guess is going to be some more oversight at the local level into these as this progresses and as this gets all done. And to me, that position is the first step in getting that to happen.
Good, thank you. And second question is, you know, you just mentioned the patients that contracted the virus, they were moved to a different facility. Is that just one for all of them, or there are several nursing homes just for these patients that contracted virus?
That's actually a very good question, and it's something we're curious about as well, because we don't believe that there's one facility that can take everyone. They were trying to disperse at the height of this over 60 or 70 patients. So some have gone to hospitals, and they've gone to other facilities that they have agreements with in their disaster plans that will accept their patients in the event of an internal disaster such as this pandemic, where they are no longer able to care. And unfortunately, some of the patients have succumbed to the disease as well, so that's also lowered the census.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Thank you.
Okay. Next item.
Public comment. This is the time set aside for members of the public to address the City Council on items of interest that are not on the agenda, but are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the San Gabriel City Council. Assistant City Clerk Bonas, please read any public comments that have been received.
Good evening, Mayor Menchaca and members of the City Council. We have received multiple comments related to funding and support for the Chamber of Commerce, which will be read into the record under public hearing item 5A, with the exception of one, which was submitted under general comment from Donna Lee. It reads as follows. Dear Mayor Menchaca, Vice Mayor Liao, Council Member Ding, Harrington, and Pu. Hello and good evening. My name is Donna Lee. I am communicating to thank you and commend each of you for your compassion, hard work, and dedication in serving the city of San Gabriel, particularly during the last 3 months while the city and the community have been dealing with the global COVID-19 pandemic of 2020 and its impact. Local businesses especially have been affected due to not having the ability to serve the public directly. What I love about your community is there are organizations and people who strive to ensure the city of San Gabriel stays vital, strong, and alive. The San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce is one of those organizations. I sincerely request that you please ensure the city's budget allocations, annual and otherwise, to the San Gabriel Chamber continue. and also for any future projects and planned community events. During this pandemic, the San Gabriel Chamber has been an integral partner in communicating vital information from local governmental agencies and others to members, residents, and community organizations weekly, at times daily, in an effort to keep people current and up to date. Ms. Sandy Roscoe, San Gabriel Chamber Executive Director, is an organized, outstanding, compassionate, forward-thinking leader who continues to do everything in her being to ensure the city of San Gabriel and its residents, especially local businesses, continue to prosper and remain strong and vital. Personally, I have been a member of the San Gabriel Chamber for over 5 years, and I am also a current ambassador with the Chamber to help build and enhance relationships with members, ensuring their continued success and vitality. If you have any questions or wish to speak with me, she has provided her contact information for you. I thank you for the consideration to continue to provide funding allocation to the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce as we continue to work diligently and hard to keep San Gabriel businesses afloat during this very fluid time, and we will all remain internally grateful and thankful. Sincerely, your friend, Donna. That is all the public comments I have.
Okay, thank you. Next item, please.
Consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered routine, and recommendations will be approved in one motion unless a member of the city council or audience requests separate discussion.
Yeah. Assistant City Clerk, have we received any requests from the public to pull any items?
We have not.
Okay. Vice Mayor Lau?
No, I don't have anything. A motion to approve.
Let me finish asking each of the council members. I'm sorry. Councilmember Ding, would you like to pull anything? Any item?
No.
Okay. Councilmember Harrington?
Yeah, I'd like to pull item 4, please. 4D.
Okay. Councilmember Pu?
I would like to pull item C.
Okay. So why don't we first, are they mostly clarifying questions, Councilmember Harrington and Councilmember Pu?
Yeah, I have a couple, just they're short.
Okay, so why don't we just go through your questions first, and then we'll go through the approval process if it's appropriate to go forward. So why don't you start, Councilmember Harrington?
Thank you, Mayor. So I went through the description of what we did for the Ticketmaster agreement since the last meeting, and there were a couple things that I'm still concerned about. I saw that the charges and fees were reduced a bit, but I think they're still quite high. Ticketmaster gets a lot more fee and service charge than the city by, especially when the tickets get more expensive by quite a bit. I'm just not comfortable with that. The answer regarding indemnity, I asked why we're indemnifying Ticketmaster, and the response came back just that it's standard in their agreements. I mean, if we said, hey, let's make an ordinance that it's standard in our agreements that we don't indemnify, would we never contract with somebody? So I don't like those types of answers where, well, it's a standard agreement and that's just what they always do. I don't think we ought to be giving them indemnity for anything. That's just a matter of principle. So those two things really, I just wanted further explanation of why we're the facility, and I don't know that Ticketmaster brings us any extra business or it sells us any extra tickets. And on some of the more expensive, they can be getting 5, 6, 7 times the fee that the actual Playhouse gets. And in the time where we actually need the money, it seems like Ticketmaster's getting really the long end of that stick and we're getting the short end.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilmember Harrington, especially. This is Community Services Director Rebecca Perez, and I would be happy to address that. So these fees are reduced. These Ticketmaster fees are reduced in this agreement, and that was part of the reason that we wanted to move forward with an amendment to the agreement, in addition to the fact that the original agreement was expiring as of December 2019. And we have compared this with other ticketing resources, and this is comparable to those other ticketing outlets, if you will. And so staff has determined that this is the best agency to move forward with, because we have worked with them and have an agreement with them, and we have been able to work successfully with them. So that is the reason for that. And regarding the indemnification, actually, I might turn to City Attorney Lemieux if he has any additional response to that. We did work with Attorney Tabarez on this, but I know that City Attorney Lemieux might have something to respond to with that.
Well, I don't have anything. You're correct. It appears to be one-sided, and this is what they're demanding as on kind of a take it or leave it basis, as I understand it.
Okay, those are my questions. So.
Okay. Okay, well then we'll move to item 4C. Oh,
Mayor,
yes.
Mayor,
Did you have a
can you
question
hear
for Ticketmaster? Yes.
yes,
okay, go.
it's always good to have, people like Ticketmaster selling our tickets, but in reality, most of our shows are produced by community members. They're free, and very few utilize Ticketmaster. The only concern I have is because we don't know what we're going to do with the Mission Playhouse. And I should have brought this up earlier, sorry, because if we continue with this agreement with Ticketmasters, we cannot terminate, if it's 3 years and we want an early termination, we have to pay $30,000 every year. And that's a lot of money. So unless we can wait in July, that we gonna talk about it and see how we're gonna do with the Mission Playhouse. Maybe by the time we have a better, vision that what we're gonna do. But right now, I think we would just go ahead and extend the agreement. Maybe it's just too early, and maybe we're gonna run into a problem because we have the penalty for termination.
Staff actually discussed that specific issue with the city attorney. First off, we are not proposing the 5-year agreement, which would then have that termination clause and would have the fee if we were to terminate the agreement. We are proposing a 3-year term to the agreement, which then does not have the termination clause included. And we do not have a minimum fee, if you will, that we have to pay to Ticketmaster. So though we understand that the discussion is still continuing on the Mission Playhouse, and obviously at this time, due to the COVID situation, until the county public health order is changed, the situation that there are not performances being held at the Mission Playhouse, there is not a minimum fee that has to be paid to Ticketmaster. So we are not held to that. So in discussion with the city attorney, we proposed moving forward with the agreement at this time. And again, that was, as you will recall, the agreement with them, the original agreement had been expired essentially as of December 2019. And we had entered into this agreement and brought that forward to council to request that the council ratify the original agreement and also approve this amendment. So in fact, these reduced fees are actually already in place. So I hope that answers the question.
Do you have any more questions, Vice Mayor? Is that clear?
I'm reading it, it's on page 2 and last sentence. Ticketmaster agreed to reduce the term to a period of 3 years, as was included in the original agreement. Okay, with no early termination right. With no.
Correct. So
termination
if
right.
the amendment that we brought to the council in February was for a term of 5 years, did not include a termination right. Based on the discussion that we heard at the February council meeting, we took that back. We negotiated, including a termination clause in the agreement, and Ticketmaster determined that in order to maintain that 5-year agreement, they would be willing to include a termination clause, but it would be with a fee of the $30,000 per year. So in that case, staff is recommending a 3-year extension of the agreement.
Okay, thank you.
So that's clear that with the 5-year agreement, then there would be a 30,000 termination fee. With the 3-year agreement, there's no termination fee. Is that correct, Rebecca?
There's no ability for us to terminate the clause. So there's no termination clause included, but there's also not a fee for termination.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Okay. Let's see. So there's no more questions on 4C. I'm sorry, 4D. Let me turn it to Councilmember Pu for 4C.
Thank you, Mayor. So for members of the public, this is for the purchase of an aerial tree trimming truck. And it's quite an expensive piece of equipment. And the way that it's proposed to be funded is to take money that was allocated for it, but then also extra funds that were for the purchase of a changeable message sign from Measure R, and then an additional amount of money from gas tax funds. So I just want to understand what is I understand, I mean, I read their staff report and understand our current piece of equipment is old, but is this something that absolutely positively needs to be replaced right now?
Hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. This is Greg DeVink, the Public Works Director, responding. And absolutely no, we do have an existing bucket truck that they are using. It is probably tied for our most used piece of equipment in Public Works, along with the sewer Vector truck. It is 20 years old and has an awful lot of hours. It's used almost every single working day, trimming trees and in the right of way. And there's 2 reasons that this piece of equipment, this 20-year-old piece of equipment, seems to be aging out. The first is that it is breaking down more frequently, and the repairs are getting bigger and taking longer. Just that's inherent with being older. And the second issue with it is AQMD has kind of essentially an emissions expiration date on it, which is approaching very soon. I think as early as next year, this piece will be fully banned. And as I've said in a prior presentation, we are looking to get limited use permits where we can extend the life of what we use, but this truck is used every day. It'll never qualify for a limited use vehicle like our large dump truck does that we use maybe once a month. So there's 2 reasons to do it. It was budgeted. It is Measure R and gas tax funded, not general funded. And it does qualify as right-of-way maintenance along the transportation corridors. And ultimately, we do have an annual contract with West Coast Arborists to provide our annual tree trimming program. But like every group in Public Works, I try to get staff to take as much work as we can away from contractors and consultants. This is another tool enabling us to do that. When it is broken or when our work is just beyond our ability with staff and equipment, we do rely on West Coast Arborists, and they do charge us a competitive rate, but it is much more expensive than doing it ourselves.
Can I ask, is this piece of equipment also used to trim trees in our parks?
Yes, it is. It has a 55-foot reach, so it does handle pretty much all our trees except the taller palms. We don't have the reach. West Coast Arborist has larger trucks and they can do the tallest palm trees, but we do everything else. And I believe last Christmas, I sent out a picture of this truck setting up the Christmas lights on our tree. So it just, it's a very useful truck. We use it all the time.
Was going to ask us also then, let's see. Oh, I noticed that, you know, this piece of equipment is a diesel truck. Is the new piece of equipment any cleaner from an environmental perspective?
Yes, they have much cleaner emission standards. I'm not much certain it is diesel. I thought we were getting a gasoline one. You know, another thing that you may ask, and I'll bring it up anyway, is that we are piggybacking off an LA contract, and LA, with their enormous buying power, I believe bought, I can't remember the number, but it's either 8 or 12 of these in one shot. So we're getting their volume rate, which also is good for us.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I understand you're using the Sourcewell piggyback ability, and there are a number of other, you know, types of equipment and vehicles that channel, I guess, you know, could, you know, we could benefit from some of those other kinds of equipment as well. Okay, so, and then as far as the changeable message sign, from what I understand then, and maybe you know, Chief Harris or Chief Wallace would need to chime in on this, but how many do we currently have? And I'm wondering then, is that because we're basically foregoing that changeable message sign, and then is that changeable message sign, would that have been a public works property versus say PD or fire? Because I think currently we maybe have one or two perhaps, but they're both within the police department.
That's correct. We do have, and I'll let Chief Harris confirm. I think we have one, possibly two, at the police department. The budget was for 2 more for public works. We do also have in our possession 2 arrow boards. They don't say a message, but they flash left or right if we need it for just, rather than just information, but to direct traffic. We do have arrow boards.
Oh, right. You mean just it's just a sign, an A-frame that has a sign on it, right?
No, it's a trailer that lights up and the arrows flash left or right.
Okay, got it. But not a changeable message sign. All right. Well,
Chief Harris is back if you'd like him to respond, Councilmember Pooh.
Somebody else was about to speak.
Oh, that was Greg.
Okay.
And now I forgot what I was going to say.
Greg, can I have a question for you? So if we purchase this aerial tree trimming truck, are we still going to continue the contract with the West Coast Arborists or no? Because they claim they know how to trim the trees because they know which kind of trees that, you know, do the right topping and that kind of thing, so they can preserve the tree lives. So do we have people have that kind of knowledge that we can treat the trees?
Yes, that's, I'll answer that this way. Our our parks manager is a licensed certified arborist, as well as the tree maintenance lead is pursuing his arbor certificate now. It takes classes and testing. But we do have that in-house expertise. Part 2 is, yes, we are keeping West Coast Arborists. We're looking into renewing their contract, which is coming up soon, but also it's because we have too many trees. We just can't handle the entire program. And we do have some trees we can't reach, but we do minimize their use by having the ability to do a lot of it ourselves. And the other thing I was going to mention earlier regarding the message boards is we did budget less than what the actual truck is costing. And in looking for more money, we felt that swapping the message boards for the extra funds needed for this truck is probably the more efficient and effective use of the Public Works budgeted dollars.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not your turn, Councilman.
I'm sorry, I should have interrupted. Chief Harris still is there. Did you want to respond, Chief Harris, to the question, or?
No, it's okay.
It's okay.
Well, can you just tell us, Chief Harris, what is our overall complement of changeable message boards within the police department?
We actually only have one that we have use, right?
Yes.
It's one, but it has a lot of capabilities that we can use, including exterior lights and things like that. So we try to strategically place it where it can be of most value, but they're very expensive.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Well, all I can say is, you know, we all know the budget is tight and will continue to be tight in the next fiscal year, especially when public information is important during times of crisis like this. And apparently, you know, right now we happen to be in the middle of a crisis, and so do think that those changeable message signs, message boards for future purchase, you know, should be brought back. But it appears that you know, this piece of equipment and looking, can I ask Greg too? I mean, outside of the Sourcewell, you know, contract process, have you looked at any other independent sort of pricing?
Yes, we did look at another manufacturer. I think it's called T-Rex. And what it was evaluated from several perspectives by Public Works. One is we had Fleet evaluate it, and they've been very happy with Altec as far as customer service and our parts availability, whereas T-Rex he felt would be harder to get parts for. And in being cost competitive, I don't really believe we'll get a better price than jumping on LA's buying power in their large volume orders. So we didn't look a lot. We did evaluate another manufacturer and other models, but we have an Altec now. We've been happy with their service and parts supplies. It's 20 years. I mean, to be used every day for 20 years is a pretty good indicator of a quality product. And we also had our staff. We sent John and our parks lead for tree trimming off to LA to actually see and demo their 20-year newer version of what we have and what options. And if you do compare ours to the LA package, we actually have less expensive options than LA as well. So it's we're paying a little less than LA did, even with their bulk purchase. But we tried it out. So it's been evaluated in person. Another manufacturer was compared, and you know, we didn't try to independently bid it outside of LA's bulk pricing. So that part we did not do. I don't think that would work anyway in our favor.
Right. Okay. Well, it just appears like that our budgeting was not, you know, adequate for the full replacement cost of this piece of equipment, and therefore we're having to make some trade-offs here. This is why I'm sort of bringing it up and pulling the item to make sure that we're comfortable with the trade-offs. Of course, I want us to be able to take care of our urban forest and trees within the parks and so forth and so on. That's not the question. And of course, saving money on contractors is always a good thing. So yeah, I guess, you know, we should support this, but I think, you know, it kind of goes towards our overall budgeting to a certain extent as well, in that, you know, normally we have a sinking fund for equipment, and one of the measures that we've had to do is to suspend some of that a little bit and find alternatives. But you know, just as we try to budget for all the other you know, items, that it would be nice to not be forced to make trade-offs, you know, on a consent item between one needed piece of equipment and another needed piece of equipment. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Councilmember Ding, I see your mic is on. Did you have a question?
Yeah, question for Greg. So just want to know if right now, because 20 years old, you say that a lot of spend a lot of money for the maintenance. Based on the record, how much every year they cost the maintenance?
I do not have a dollar figure on maintenance, and I don't think the dollar figure is the bigger problem. It's the time when it goes down. It's going down more and more frequently, and the repairs are taking a little longer. I do recall once earlier this year, it was down for 3 weeks straight for a fuel system problem on it. The parts really weren't that expensive, but troubleshooting it and figuring it all out and chasing the problem took quite a while. So time is probably the bigger concern than the cost, but the cost will be going up.
Mm-hmm. But I think is it this truck is the same manufacturer, same?
Yes.
Okay. So what they have the warranty, the new truck, make sure we still can use the 20 years?
Well, you don't get a 20-year warranty. I believe the new warranty is 1 year. It's lifetime on the structural elements of the frame, but I believe it's a 1-year warranty. It is listed in the attachment somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It'll take me a little while to find it. I can let you know.
This is Mark. It's on page 11, Greg, of the staff report. It is a 1-year warranty and a limited lifetime structural warranty.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that all, Councilmember Ding?
Yeah, that's it. Because I want to see how much maintenance, so see if it worth to replace the new one, you know. Well, just in case, if a new one sometimes is down, so probably take a short time to fix it, or?
It depends on the nature of why it's down, but it should be down much less frequently, and we won't be dealing with AQMD as an issue either. We're gonna have bigger and bigger AQMD issues as years go on and their standards get tougher. I think next year our fleet is aging into a new category, and they treat it in two ways. They look at vehicles individually, those that are plated for road use, and then they look at our fleet as a whole for our other items like our tractors and our steamroller and things of that nature. And our fleet is old, and you get an overall score. And as you replace out pieces that are just undesirable by emission standards, your score goes up and you get to keep the other pieces longer. So it's a strange puzzle of emissions rules.
Okay. All right.
Plus, I'm inclined to keep the old one for a little while. If we get a limited use permit on it for future years, then we'll have this to fall back on if the new truck needs service.
Okay. So the old truck, we still can keep it, sometimes still can for the backup use, right?
That's what I would like to do for a while.
Okay. Oh yeah, just another question. It's because on the Las Tunas side, here some business owners say the tree it's need like more trimming. So because the trees are growing up too much, you know, especially on the right now, you know.
It's nice that they grow, and it's a problem that they grow.
Okay. Yeah, I know, but the problem is that wherever you hang over the like a business building, it's a fire hazard, right? So
Yeah, they can create a physical liability. We try to
Yeah.
keep up with it.
yeah,
We
Okay.
also have tree issues that are just sporadic when branches fall down or a windstorm comes or a tree just gets old and falls over. We have the ability to respond quickly
Mhm.
and keep the public safer that way as well,
Okay.
without bringing in West Coast arborists on their extra charges.
Okay.
One last comment that I'll bring up is because this is Measure R and a little bit gas tax funded, purchasing this vehicle or not purchasing this vehicle does not help out our general fund deficit. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor, can I
Oh,
have a question?
Yes, Vice
So-
Mayor?
Yes, so, Greg, you just mentioned, we might have a problem, in the future, with this truck because it's fueled by, diesel. So is there a new, truck that is fueled by maybe electric or other, natural gas? Do you know anything about that?
I believe they are not commercially available at this time. Natural gas, I've been involved in many natural gas vehicles, and I personally don't like them. They do burn cleaner, but they have a very limited range. And then when the tanks expire, which is typically about 3 years, it's very expensive. So we currently own a few natural gas vehicles now, and even though they're low miles and in great condition, with the tanks expiring, you almost have to abandon them. We're looking into now. I've asked the fleet manager to consider what's the cost to convert them back to natural gas or to gasoline, so we can keep a good vehicle. If it's not too expensive, we'll convert it to gas and keep it. Might be a lot cheaper than changing out the tank, which has a very short range, and we have to go to Alhambra to fuel every time. So it's a nuisance. Electric on heavy fleet vehicles, especially of a limited nature like a lift truck, is just not available yet.
Okay. Well, what about, it's called renewable, diesel, it will be a clean, energy because if we're gonna face problem with AQMD, we might, use it for a year or two and then we'll be out of service because it just pollutes the air. So can you ask the manufacturer if they have something they use? It's called the renewable diesel engine.
I believe the engines produced today all do comply fully with AQMD rules. Our older ones, we've modified some of them to have emission scrubbers, which adds some years to AQMD's rules. Our dump truck has that. But even with that, it is aging out. But I believe this motor will comply with everything AQMD wants.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
great. So let me make sure I heard this correctly. I would like to, if I can have a motion to approve the consent calendar for all items except 4D, which is the revised amendment to the Ticketmaster agreement. So we'll vote on that separately because that's what I'm hearing. It's a separate vote. So do I have a motion?
I'll move all items except for 4D.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. So City Clerk, can you take the vote, please?
Councilmember Ding,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Councilmember Pu,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Liao,
Aye.
Mayor Menchaca.
Aye.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Okay. Now, do I have a motion to approve consent calendar item 4D? No one would like to make a motion? Okay, Well, then the item fails. So we'll move forward to the next item.
Public hearing. Adoption of resolutions approving the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 operating budget and capital improvement program and establishing the 2020 to 2021 appropriations limit. Presentation will be made by Management Specialist Julia James.
Thank you and good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Tonight we are presenting for adoption, the proposed budget, capital improvement plan, and appropriation limit for the fiscal year 2021. Slide 2, please. The proposed budget was developed focusing on a number of priorities, and priority 1, the most important being that we balance the city budget, especially the general fund, using conservative and realistic estimates. We also want to prepare general fund with a projected positive fund balance at the end of the fiscal year. We also want to ensure that the funds are sufficient and available to meet cash flow needs while sustaining our quality level of services. We plan to provide fiscal updates to the City Council regularly throughout the year to keep you informed of any changes that occur. And finally, we want to prove to the state when the audit is performed that the city is serious about our fiscal reform. And by that, I mean that the state auditors take a very hard-lined approach when they come in, expecting the city to take all possible measures to build our general fund reserves. And we believe that the budget that was developed for this coming fiscal year reflects the city's commitment in that regard. Slide 3, please. Of course, we know that the city has had a number of fiscal challenges throughout the year, the main one being the general fund deficit. And I want to emphasize that a positive fund balance is extremely important because we need to be able to secure and refinance loans. And we have a number of lease purchase, or we have a number of vehicles that we want to lease purchase this next year. And earlier this year, in trying to obtain funding for the police vehicles, we ran into issues because of our general fund deficit. So we definitely want to build that up so that we can do that, as well as possibly refinance our public works loan. And we also want to show again the state auditors that we are committed to building our reserves. We also have the issue of the unfunded items in the budget. We are not able right now to add to our OPEB trust other than our pay-as-you-go numbers. As we just spoke about a few minutes ago, we do not have a pool for the replacement of equipment and vehicles. We have the ongoing issue of the Mission Playhouse. And we also have on our books about 14 million of long-term debt, including loans, claims, and accrued leave that we need to build funds up to cover. And then finally, as we all know, the COVID-19 created issues for the timing of the recovery and the subsequent difficulty in projecting revenues. Slide 4. So what we came up with was a citywide budget that we feel is our best estimates right now, as proposed. And we do have some adjustments that we will talk about towards the end of this presentation. But for the purposes of the first part of the presentation, I'm going with the numbers that were produced in the document that was released last week. And for that, we have a total city budget, including our CIP, of $74,465,000. Our general fund, it shows here, is about 60% of our operating budget. Special revenue funds at 32%, internal service funds of 8%. And I have a little asterisk there because the internal service funds are funded primarily by the general fund.
And then when you also consider that 9 million of the special revenue funds is also from retirement, which goes into the general fund, our total operating budget is really more like 75% of general fund, which again shows you how important the general fund is. Slide 5, please. So of our operating budget, again, we have personnel costs, the breakdown of 62% or 42 million. Operating costs are 37% or 25 million. And then we have capital outlay and special projects of 708,000 or 1% of the total operating budget. And again, this does not include the 6.2 million of CIP. We'll go to slide 7, please, where we're going to talk now about the general fund. So as we talked about last month in our presentation in the budget workshop, we anticipate starting the year with a general fund deficit balance. And we are proposing revenues in the general fund of 33 million next year. That is slightly above the last year's budget and the estimated for the current year. And we will talk more about these numbers in detail during the presentation. But the budget also consists of transfers in from the retirement fund of 9 million, and then general fund expenditures of 41 million, transfers out of 250,000 to the Mission Playhouse. And we anticipate having a positive fund balance of approximately 140,000 next year as it's proposed. Slide 8, please. Our general fund revenues are anticipated to increase next year by about 1% or 42 million. Now that is, we will talk about these numbers in detail in the next slide, but what's really carrying that positive increase is our taxes. Most of the other areas of our revenues are anticipated to decrease a bit, except for fines and forfeitures because of our parking revenues, which are going strong right now, as well as our taxes. Slide 9. So the revenue assumptions for the general fund include that our tax revenues will increase by 7%, not entirely due to Measure SG, but in part by Measure SG. And by that, I mean that if we had not had Measure SG pass, our total revenues would actually be going down next year, and we anticipate it would have been about a negative 5% instead of a positive 7%. The property taxes we're estimating to increase by about a modest 5%. And I say modest because last year our assessed valuation increased by 7.3%, and we had a strong year for property tax. Our values in our homes are still fairly high. We haven't gotten the AV estimate for the next year yet, but we are not anticipating that people are going to not pay their property taxes due to COVID. And we know that the governor's forgiveness plan only allows until next May for all property taxes to be paid. So we do anticipate that we should receive our full property tax revenue in the next fiscal year. We do show a decrease of 10% in sales tax from what we think we would have received in next fiscal year had it not been for COVID. And TOT assumes a 50% decrease, assuming that hotels are going to open soon, but they will be operating at a very low rate. We anticipate that fines and forfeitures will increase. And again, that's due in part to our strong parking revenue, as well as the council's proposed new parking permit program, which I understand has yet to be vetted, but we are anticipating that if that goes through, that will provide an increase in revenue. We do not anticipate any fee increases at this time. Because of the COVID, we did not want to hit people up with any more increases in the next fiscal year, but we will be having a fee study done, and we will be able to probably recoup those costs in future years. Our community service charges are decreased, and we are proposing that they decrease more. And again, we will get into that later in the presentation. Our licenses and permits anticipate to be higher than budgeted next year, although we did not build that into the budget, but we do anticipate a lot of development to come through next fiscal year, and that might provide us with a little bit of cushion if some of these other revenues do not come to fruition. And then other revenue areas, we anticipate slight decreases in. Slide 10, please. So our general fund expenditures, we are showing a decrease totaling of $465,000 from the prior year. And this is due primarily to increases in personnel costs. So we had to then reduce other areas of our budget to compensate for that. And we talk about that in slide 11, if we can go to that. So even though we do not have any cost of living increases built into the budget, we do know that benefits tend to go up each year, and we anticipate an increase of about $1.46 million in the general fund. So to offset that increase, we took reduction measures of $1.7 million to balance the budget, and that included unfunding 3 positions: senior NIS officer, IT specialist, and a management analyst. And that gave us roughly $360,000 in savings. Then we budgeted a vacancy factor of 6 months for delay in filling positions, and that was valued at over $900,000. We reduced staff development training and department budgets, which was roughly $90,000. We reduced the transfer out to the Mission Playhouse, which was over $350,000, and transferred eligible public works costs to other special revenue funds, and that was roughly more between $400,000 and $500,000. Slide 12, please. We did have a few additions to the general fund budget, the largest of which was the settlement claim for the Flores case of $500,000. You'll find that in the human resources budget. You'll note that it increased significantly. That's a one-time increase, and then it'll go back to where it was in the next fiscal year. We also have anticipated an increase to the animal control contract of roughly 32% or $86,000, and that's budgeted in the non-departmental department budget. We also budgeted for consultants in the city manager's office for the strategic plan and the finance department for a fee study, as well as incorporating debt service payments of roughly 6 months to lease purchase 3 police vehicles, a police motorcycle, a fire rescue ambulance, and a public works utility truck. And those are budgeted in the fleet maintenance department. Slide 13, please. So we do have a contingency plan in the event that's either revenues do not materialize or other adjustments need to be made. And that would include the, as I mentioned earlier, in the revenues. We do have several developments that are in the works in the next fiscal year. And we do anticipate that our community development permit revenue and planning revenue will exceed the budgeted estimates, possibly by as much as $1 million if that goes through. So that is one contingency. And then on the expenditure side, if need be, we can delay filling the vacancies, vacant positions by as much as 12 months, giving us an additional $900,000+ in savings. So that would give us almost $2 million in contingency plan for the budget next year. Slide 14. Then again, we talk about the importance of the general fund balance and our desire to build it up as quickly as we can. And just to remind you, we do have a fund balance policy that establishes achieving a 17% goal by June 30th, 2028, of which 3% was supposed to be achieved by the end of next fiscal year, which would equate to about $1.2 million. If it does not look that that is going to come to fruition, we urge the council to revise the fund balance policy and push the target dates back. So council will return, staff will return to council in July with a proposal to amend the fund balance policy. Let's go to slide 16, where we'll talk about other funds. Our other funds include our internal service funds, which include the Fleet Services Fund and the Risk Management Fund. Both of those do anticipate an increase next year. The Fleet Services Fund will increase primarily because of the vehicles that we intend to lease purchase, which I mentioned in a few slides ago. And then our insurance premiums are also increasing next year, primarily workers' comp, which is attributable to the increase in the Risk Management Fund. Slide 17. Then we have our special revenue funds, and unlike the general fund, these funds are non-discretionary funds, which must be used for the purposes for which we receive these funds. And the categories that we have for special revenue funds are transportation, public safety, community services, utilities, and then we have others for public projects such as development and purchase of equipment and vehicles and things. So that would be our grants and development impact funds. And as you can see, we have over 21 million proposed next year in special revenue funds. We'll talk a little bit about some of those on the next slide, slide 18. So again, unlike the general fund, these special revenue funds are used primarily for capital outlay and projects. We do use some of it for our operating costs, but a lot of it goes towards our capital improvement plan. And then of course we have basically 9 million of our special revenue funds are from the retirement fund, which go to the general fund. Slide 19, please. So not too many changes next year in our special revenue funds, but I do want to highlight a few interesting notes here. The retirement fund next year is derived from property taxes, and it does roll with the activity that we see with property taxes. Some years are better than others. Next year, we're anticipating that it'll be a little lower than it was the year before in terms of our growth. And we do anticipate receiving about 9 million to go into the general fund. That will not cover all of our retirement costs, but it is anticipated to cover most of our retirement costs. And then in the following fiscal year, we will have to see whether we generate enough to cover all of our retirement costs or not. The gas tax fund, we do have a proposed amendment to the gas tax revenue. I know that some of you were concerned that the estimates might be a little bit high, so we will be proposing an amendment to that later in the presentation. But we have shifted a lot of our general fund costs over to the gas tax fund because they were eligible for that. And that does include the purchase of a new vehicle next year for street striping. The stormwater fund is brand new this next year, and that enabled us to shift about 175,000 of general fund costs to this new fund, which is going to be funded by the Measure W from LA County, which is going to give us an anticipated $400,000 next year for clean water projects. We have approximately 275,000 in expenditures budgeted for this year. And Greg does anticipate coming back for a request to hire some additional personnel and bring that expenditure up to 400,000, but that is pending approval from LA County on any proposed projects that we intend to do with that money. So that will be an amendment later in the year. Slide 20, please. We have Measure R, which, as noted in the budget presentation last month, includes almost $2.4 million in additional revenue next year. And this is generated from the 710 project, which we will be using to improve traffic flow on Valley Boulevard with the timing of traffic signals. So you'll see that in the CIP. And then finally, we have the Mission Playhouse Fund, which, as you all know, we need to take a look at and decide how we are going to be funding that in future years. We did not spend a great deal of time trying to amend the Playhouse and balance that budget because we are going to come back to you in July with a full study and discussion for proposed measures on how to fund that in future years. So as of right now, it's just budgeted basically in full as if it were operating for the entire year. Now we'll go to slide 22. And this is just a table that shows our staffing complement for the next year citywide. And you will note that while the middle column says proposed staffing next year of 201, we show only 198 being funded. And if we go to slide 23, that is because we have to save money. We have unfunded these three positions, which we anticipate being able to save a little over 300,000 by doing that. Slide 24, please. On the other side, we will actually be adding 3 positions in the Public Works Department, although those positions will be funded by gas tax as they will be in the Streets Division. And then Greg also plans to reclassify several positions as part of his Public Works reorganization. Slide 25. And then again, as mentioned previously, we do have nearly $1 million built into our budget next year for savings in anticipation of not filling a number of positions for a minimum of 6 months. It's not that we are freezing these positions, but we do anticipate it taking up to 6 months to fill them once we start recruiting. If the council chooses to delay the hiring of these positions to save some additional funding, that is one direction that they can provide to staff. Slide 20, let's go to slide 27, please. And this slide just quickly highlights the projects in the CIP next year. We have street improvements of 2.4 million, of which the majority is for the annual streets program. We have 2.4 million of traffic signal improvements. And again, that is primarily the 710 funding that we're receiving to make the improvements on Valley Boulevard. We have nearly $1 million in sewer improvements, $100,000 in park improvements for Smith Park, and $300,000 for the police department office space addition. And that totals our 6.2 million in CIP for next year. Now, if we go to slide 29, you may have noticed in the budget resolution number 2029, we have Exhibit A, which shows that we are proposing some amendments to the budget document that was provided to you a couple of weeks ago. This is because we are receiving information nearly weekly from state, local governments, and other agencies in terms of what our revenues are doing, and then we are making adjustments accordingly. We did find that the state reduced our gas tax funding estimates by about $60,000 next year, and our road maintenance and rehab funds by about $70,000 next year. And then also at the budget presentation last month, the council noted that community services revenue seemed a little bit high, so we have reduced that by $102,000 between the general fund and the community services fund 173. On the expenditure side, we are subsequently reducing by about $150,000 in expenditures for community service programs for the summer, anticipating that we won't really have many summer programs to provide. And then I also noted that we had about $76,000 in savings in the fire department, as we will be able to budget by filling these vacant positions. We will be able to budget at a lower salary and benefit rate than those positions that left the city. So with that, if we can turn to slide 30. This shows the amended budget now as proposed with the budget resolution Exhibit A, and it will reduce our total city operating revenues down to $251,617. And our total expenditures will go down to $68,047,732. And this is just the operating budget. The CIP will remain the same. So our total city revenues will be almost $74.5 million, and our expenditures at $74.2 million. Slide 31. So to show you what the details will be on the reduction of the community services revenue, we have reduced the proposed budget by about $15,000 in the general fund, which is still, as you know, it's significantly lower than what we had in last fiscal year, and it is lower than what we originally proposed. And on slide 32, these are the reductions for the community services revenue and funds 173, which is where most of the recreation programs are. And you'll note that last year we had 188,000. This year we originally proposed 176,000, but we've now reduced the revenue down to 94,000. Slide 33, please. And as I mentioned a couple of slides ago, we are reducing the gas tax and the road maintenance rehab revenues down slightly, and these could be reduced further as the year goes on, but these were the state's best estimates as of last week. Slide 34, please, or 35. So our next steps are to adopt our budget by June 30. The budget is ready to adopt tonight, should the council decide to do so. In July, we will come back with a revised, or to talk about revising the fund balance policy, as well as to discuss the future of the Mission Playhouse. And then throughout the year, we will be monitoring the budget and adjusting it as needed. We will provide monthly or regular, however often the council would like, for us to provide updates on what information that we have received from our consultants and our local agencies and state agencies. We will hire a consultant to prepare the fee study, and we will be preparing for the state audit as well. And slide 36, please. In closing, staff wants to let the council know that we understand and we appreciate your concerns regarding the revenue. We've heard from many of you that it might still be too high. We should probably revise it downward even more. We are doing the best we can. We We can't keep chasing these. It's changing weekly, and it will continue to do so for a while. So what staff is recommending is that we have the council adopt the budget tonight as it is with the amendments that were proposed in the resolution. And then we will come back to you as we get concrete changes, either from our consultants or from the other agencies, or we start seeing the trends go a certain way, we will be able to revise accordingly. However, if the council decides tonight that you'd like to make further amendments to the budget, we just encourage you to also consider making amendments on the expenditure side too, because we really do need to adopt a balanced budget. So again, we have some ideas, we have some contingencies in mind should you decide to do that, but we would need to take that action as well. And with that, that concludes my presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. So at this time, I'll be asking City Council for any clarifying questions to the staff. I just want to remind my colleagues that deliberations will take place after the public hearing is closed. So we will start with Councilmember Pu.
Thank you, Mayor. No questions.
Okay. Councilmember Dean.
Yeah, okay. So because I got like a budget, is there any updated for the budget? Final estimate the balances for next year is how much right now? For my record, the last week I got it's like 140,000, right?
You're talking about the estimated fund balance?
Yeah, fund balance for the next year. I want to balance
Right.
yeah.
Right. That all depends on what the proposed revenues and expenditures will be. The budget document that was released to you in the binders that you received does show 40,000 to the good. If we these additional savings, that budget reserve is anticipated to go up a little bit by the adoption resolution and the amendments that are included in there. But again, it depends on how the current fiscal year 1920 ends. And as of right now, we're still in the midst of that. We've received about 9 months of our 12 months of revenue. And I say 9 months because we do accrue back the revenues all the way till the end of August. We accrue those to the previous fiscal year. So as of right now, starting with the September revenues that we received all the way through May, we have about 9 months worth of revenue. We are noticing the trends just in the past month have gone down from what we would normally receive. So we are starting to realize what COVID did to our revenues, but we really don't know yet how the year is going to end. So we have our best estimate out there right now. It could change a little bit, but it doesn't look like it's going to be off too far. We do believe that we'll still come in fairly reasonably close to what we had predicted.
Okay, so for my understanding, if your proposal like this budget is not like just one time shot, so we adopt it. So we still like monthly by monthly to check what's the status, the actual like revenue we can receive.
Absolutely,
And we can
absolutely.
change every month, right? Okay.
Correct, correct.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Harrington.
Thank you, Mayor. No questions. Thank you.
Okay, Vice Mayor Lau, any clarifying questions?
Yeah, I just, missed one funding, and it's a major A was approved by voters in 2016, and 75% of voters approved that. It's the Queen Park funding. And I look it up, San Gabriel's supposed to get 31,000 is called M&S distribution, but I haven't seen anything like that. You know, we talk about grants. Yeah, we can apply for grants for 5 million, but different. But we're supposed to get some funding from this Measure A.
Yes, and I'm not sure if Rebecca, you want to try and respond to that, or Mark. I believe that's the Measure A is something that we need to come up with a qualifying project and then apply for the funds. Is that correct?
Good evening, Council. This is Director Perez. Yes, that is the Measure A funds are available to the city for qualifying projects, as Julia mentioned. With regard to that, we have talked amongst community services and public works staff about applying in quotes to use some of those funds for various park projects, including some work that needs to be done at the pool. And so that will be forthcoming. We've also talked about restroom improvements at our various park sites. So those will be forthcoming. And the M&S funds are maintenance and servicing funds that are available as part of those. Basically, once you have a county grant, you also have maintenance and servicing funds that are available to you to use for essentially once you have installed an LA County park project using LA County funds, then you can apply for those maintenance and servicing funds. So I don't know if that answers your specific question, but those Measure A funds have not been designated for a particular project at this time.
Yes, so for M&S distribution, it's easy, you know, we just, I think 2018, we'll just apply and we're supposed to get that annually 31,000 based on our population. So I don't know why we didn't do that.
Again, that's once you have used those. So we have received, the city has received M&S funds for various LA County park funds that we've received previously. For example, we used LA County funds way back before my time, actually, on the pool at Smith Park. And so we have received M&S funds for that particular project. So once those Measure A funds are allocated to a particular project, then the M&S funds can be applied to that. For now, those funds are just compounding, if you will, to be applied to a future project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now I'll open the public hearing. Assistant City Clerk, please read any comments received.
Mayor, I have a few comments to read tonight. The first one is from Alexis Salamanca, and it reads as follows. I understand the San Gabriel City Council is considering sending the funding to the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce. I am writing in support of the Chamber and respectfully requesting that the City Council continue its financial support. When I moved to San Gabriel back in 2009, I learned about the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce and its mission to create different platforms and events to help businesses engage and connect with prospective clients. I was impressed with how the Chamber encouraged businesses to participate in their annual expo. I was surprised that even a very small business and nonprofit organizations were able to participate since the Chamber kept the cost affordable. I learned this was possible because of the city's financial support to the Chamber of Commerce, a city with a mission helping a chamber with a vision. I joined the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce in 2010. I served on the board of directors for several years, including 2 terms as the board president. After I termed out, I continued to serve as an advisor to the board and the chamber ambassadors. I made a decision to continue serving because of the difference the chamber makes in our business and nonprofit communities. After 1 year, I came back on the board of directors because the chamber represents a force of community, a legacy which thrives and is empowered by helping others. I've devoted my life to causes that help one another, and the chamber is one of them. I also serve on the board of directors of the San Gabriel Community Foundation, marketing advisor at the University of the West, administrator at Lifeway Church, San Gabriel, and former member of the San Gabriel Rotary International and San Gabriel Women's Foundation. The city support ensures the chamber can keep their membership rates affordable. It is important that as many small businesses and nonprofit organizations as possible be able to obtain the benefits of the chamber services, such as referrals and connections to prospective clients, monthly networking events, educational forums, annual education and family resource expos, annual business expos, advertising and promotional opportunities on the website, and display marketing materials in the chamber office. The chamber also keeps our members informed on important events, classes, webinars, and other matters happening in the city and county. Through the chamber, I was able to bring together members of the community at large to help create beautiful, meaningful murals at La Casa Community Center, AYC, in El Pavo Bakery. This all happened because the chamber's commitment to strengthen the city and the businesses and the nonprofit organizations. All of this ultimately also helps the resident of San Gabriel. The San Gabriel Chamber makes a difference in all kinds of businesses. Sincerely, Alexis Salamanca from Extra Design. The next comment I have tonight is from Gilda Mosher, and it reads as follows. To San Gabriel City Clerk, I am writing to support the City of San Gabriel's Chamber of Commerce. While I am a resident of Pasadena, formerly a resident of San Marino, I do have a business operating in Pasadena and have seen San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce since 2011. I have visited multiple chambers since I've been in business and found the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce to be the most helpful in growing my business. Sandy Roscoe, the executive director and the board of directors, with their programming support, offer the most conducive environment for my business to grow and flourish. I have learned how to better network and how to grow my business and share expertise with fellow business owners. I understand there's a local legislation to cut the funding to the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce. That would be most unfortunate. I used to belong to the chamber that was not supported by a city and found that it was a clunky chamber not providing much for its members. I do believe that all members must receive support from the city they reside in. The city is stronger with the business community, and the chamber provides much needed resources and access to businesses that help community grow as one. It would be a shame to cut the funding from such a fine chamber and such a fine organization. Please reconsider the funding cut to the chamber that is a vital part of the business community in San Gabriel. Thank you for your consideration. Gilda Mosher, Life Insurance Broker, PHP Agency. The next public comment I will be reading is from Regina Bori, and it reads as follows. The San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce's goal is to further the interests of local businesses. The Chamber has invested their time and money in community development programs working together to improve economic, civic, and cultural well-being of the area. What are the objectives of San Gabriel Chamber? Help businesses prosper in their growth, increase job opportunities, promotion. Chamber is always looking for member-related needs to share with the community through their own advertising networks and social media. We publicize businesses and community events through various forms of social media. Community connection. Chamber works with the city to provide a representative business voice when needed. Ongoing training and education. Chamber provides an inexpensive way to bridge the gap between no training and non-topic expert training. Relationships. Chamber is all about gaining friends, associates, and even advocates. Chamber staff answers hundreds of inquiries a year relative to every imaginable question concerning the city and area. Chamber holds 10 complimentary business networking breakfasts each year with an average attendance of between 100 to 150. Each month, we have great speakers that provide valuable education and learning information to those in attendance. For the past several years, our chamber has partnered with Economic Development Department. The chamber actively participates in, supports, and promotes the city events. The San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce takes seriously the financial investment of the city. This has allowed us to keep our membership fee low, to allow more small businesses and many nonprofit organizations the ability to join and take advantage of many benefits. Thank you, Regina Boris from REMAX Olympic. The next comment is from Sherry Cabot. Mayor Menchaca, Vice Mayor Chin-Ho Liao, council members. As you are all very much aware, we are in unprecedented difficult times. We are living under the cloud of a deadly pandemic with the stay-at-home orders, and now because of the protests and looting curfews. The COVID-19 pandemic has created economic hardships, not only in our city, but worldwide. People are struggling with unemployment, wondering how to pay their bills and put food on their table and for their families. Just when businesses were preparing to open again, protests and looting began. Many businesses have been damaged, some are destroyed, many will not recover. This just exacerbates community or economic struggles. I work in Old Pasadena. Yesterday, businesses started boarding up their windows. Today, even more are getting boarded up. I would guess that by the end of today, almost half of the businesses along Colorado Boulevard and the side streets will be boarded up. It's all very sad with no end in sight. And yet, San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce seems to be tone deaf and blind to all the physical, mental, and emotional destruction around them. There is nothing on their website offering to help businesses find financial aid or support a food bank. Is this worth $32,000 of the city's money? I don't think so. These funds need to be diverted to help landlords, renters, businesses, and families for real economic support. $32,000 can go a long way to provide groceries for food banks and financial support for struggling businesses, which in turn provide employment as well as for renters that helps landlords. I encourage the council to consider discontinuing this yearly payment to the Chamber of Commerce. Regards, Sherry Cabot. The next public comment I will be reading tonight is from Devlin Chung, and it reads as follows. Good evening, everyone. My name is Devlin Chung. Some of my earliest memories as a child took place in San Gabriel. My first cupcake that I ever had was from a local business in San Gabriel, and that bakery is still located today near the train tracks and is still in business. My childhood home is located in San Gabriel, and some of my family income properties are in San Gabriel. The city has given me and my family so many wonderful memories and unique opportunities, and I would like to thank each and every one of you for making this city what it is. It has come to my attention that funding for the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce may be reduced or eliminated entirely. I am deeply saddened and disappointed that this is even a consideration. If anything, the city should allocate more funding to the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce. I have been a member of the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce for many years now and can honestly say that if it wasn't for the chamber, I may not be where I am today. The countless networking events, relationships, and business opportunities that this chamber has provided cannot be replaced. Neighboring cities allocate more funding to their Chamber of Commerce organizations, and I can attest that they are not nearly as involved or as active as the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce. As a member of the community and active board member of the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce, I would like to make it known that I oppose any budget cut to this organization. In fact, the city should find a way to increase funding for the chamber. Thank you for your time. Best regards, Devlin Chung. The next comment I will read is from Kamala Vera, and it reads as follows. Mayor, council members, legal counsel, and staff. I'm a 25+ year resident of the city of San Gabriel, a member of the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce, and on the board of directors. My purpose is to thank all of you for being partners with the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce. City staff and the chamber have worked closely to bring businesses to the city and keep it here. We are a vital aspect of the city of San Gabriel, and it has given me much pride in representing our city through the chamber. We could not do this without your support, and so I ask you to keep this partnership by continuing to fund the chamber with the funds we have been allocated in the past. The chamber consistently looks for opportunities to engage businesses. We present the members to the community to help spread awareness of their business, and we support many nonprofits who provide services to the community at large. We do feel like a large family because we operate with a very inclusive format, always with the goal of benefiting the members of our city. Thank you for coming to the chamber events, addressing our members, and showing your commitment to our community by being business friendly. May this partnership continue as we look to recover from the effects of COVID-19 pandemic and the horrible racial divide that is currently occurring. Let us not think as you versus us, but as we in all of this situation. Respectfully, Camilla Vera, Caldwell Banker, George Realty. The next public comment I will be reading is from Paul Chang, and it reads as follows. Dear City Council, my name is Paul Chang. I am a past president of the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce. Most people do not realize the hard work of the elected officials. During COVID, you have spent countless hours about resident safety. Now you must also focus on the budget, ensuring that our future is protected. Thank you for your hard work. Protecting the future is exactly why we need to support the San Gabriel Chamber. The city has evolved over the past 20 years. There are many new businesses, much of which are owned by new immigrants. The Chamber of Commerce is a lifeline to these residents, while at the same time being a bridge to older businesses that can call San Gabriel home. We spend hundreds of hours working with businesses when they open up in the city. Have questions on code enforcement, want to do things legally, fill out applications, or simply want to connect with city government. All of this work benefits the city and decreases the workload of an already overworked city staff. No one can pick up the laboring, or should the chamber be disbanded or need to be disbanded because the city refuses to support it. Further, many of older businesses in the city feel shunned. They feel that San Gabriel only cares about newer, flashier businesses. The Chamber of Commerce reminds them, many of whom are also San Gabriel residents, that they mean something. These are older businesses representing generations of hard work, make San Gabriel great. Like all chambers, chamber members include members from other cities. Having members from other cities means the chamber is doing something right. 90% of our events are in San Gabriel. When outside residents come to our chamber, they end up dining and shopping in our city. Sales tax dollars comprise approximately 30% of our city's income. Further, many businesses and residents end up relocating to the city because of the business relationships developed through the chamber. Our property taxes account for nearly 25% of our city's revenue. Lastly, our chamber is a reflection of the greatness of the city. We are diverse in race and scope of business. We hope that the City Council sees the value of continued support in this chamber. Our chamber is known throughout Southern California for its advocacy of San Gabriel, and we will continue to do so with your approval and guidance. Very respectfully yours, Paul Chung. The next public comment I will be reading is from Isela Salazar. It reads as follows. Good evening, City Council. My comment tonight is to address the disparities in the city's proposed 2020-2021 budget. In the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic and of the racial injustices in our country, states, and cities, it is imperative that the City Council truly supports what's stated in their staff report, that the proposed budget is balanced and will sustain sufficient and quality levels of service. It concerns me to see a proposed decrease in community services and the continued pattern of increase to the police budget. Because San Gabriel is being forced to make a drastic cut to existing programs in the face of loss of tax revenue from closed businesses during COVID-19 pandemic, we continue to see increases in the police's budget. Community services, disaster relief, and community outreach programs have not seen an increase. These services should see increases as the city may be faced with future communal instabilities due to these traumatic events for years to come. It is imperative that the City Council protect, invest, and redirect resources back to our community services programs, which would directly impact the lives of many of our vulnerable and underprivileged San Gabriel families and youth. I ask that the City Council take another look at the proposed 2021 budget and ask itself, is it balanced when it does? Is it balanced and does it provide quality levels of service to all residents of our beautiful city? Thank you for your time, Isela Salazar. Finally, the last comment I will read tonight is from Sean McMorris, and it reads as follows. Hello. I would like to request the City Council consider doing the following before continuing to subsidize the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce. Number one, survey all the San Gabriel businesses and ask them if they, one, are a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and two, if they would prefer the city to spend $32,000 a year to subsidize the chamber or use that money in a matter that is directly given to struggling businesses, such as grants and commercial rental assistance. Based on that feedback, the City Council should proceed with a decision on this matter. Number two, if the city continues to fund the SG Chamber, I request that strict oversight and accountability be written into the contract so that no abuse of funds occurs. Finally, I continue to believe that this $32,000 could be put to much better use during this time of crisis than going to subsidize the SG Chamber of Commerce, which is an exclusive dues paying body whose benefit to the entire community is subjective. Sincerely, Sean McMorris, San Gabriel resident. Mayor, that is all the comments we have tonight.
Okay, thank you. So now I close the public hearing. The time for public comment on this item is closed. So we will start with council deliberations and discussion. Councilmember Pu, would you like to kick it off?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't really have much to add. For members of the public, we've each had an opportunity to go over the budget one-on-one with the staff. Some of these revisions downward of revenues are a result of some of those conversations. I'm going to note for the public that the budget is a planning document, and even in the course of the last couple of months, we've had to make numerous adjustments and revisions. Even the consent item on tonight's agenda, the one that I had pulled, was a adjustment, so to speak, since it was not that piece of equipment was not budgeted for adequately, and therefore funds from other sources needed to be taken to account for the full cost. And I think we need to be fully prepared, and I'm almost sure that we will need to make adjustments throughout the fiscal year, and maybe more than any time in recent memory, we will have to play it by ear, so to speak, and see how our revenues do come in by the end of this fiscal year, as well as how they develop over the next year. I think transient occupancy tax is one of those areas, is one of our big four revenue streams that may have the greatest amount of variability. And we have very little control over whether or not tourism will return, what the sort of occupancy will be at any of our hotels and motels. And members of the public need to know too that it's also dependent upon what is the average daily rate that's being charged. So it may be that there will be some volume there, but if it's at a very low rate, then the base upon which our transient occupancy tax is charged is going to be reduced as well. So, it's really, I think I appreciate the hard work of staff to come up with the best estimates that we can at this point in time. but it's not, let's just say some of this is science and some of this is art, and I think we're going to need to just see how things play out, and how not only how does the economy recover, but because that will have a dramatic effect on our sales tax revenue. There could be effects on our property tax revenue, although that tends to be more stable. But the transient occupancy tax with COVID, until there is a vaccine or a treatment, it's hard to imagine a lot of travel related business occurring, and therefore I think that one is very difficult to predict, because we really just don't know when sort of management of the disease itself will be available. Given all that, I think that we're and then I'll say one other thing too, is that given the uncertainty, given in a way, the budget is being presented in a way that is balanced, yes, and that we're doing as much as we can to actually protect our employees, but there are cuts in it. Let's make no mistake. There are areas where we are not funding in order to maintain full staffing, and there are ways of trying to move things around, but I don't want the public or any member of the council to be under the illusion that it's everything is still fine and hunky-dory. It's not. I think that there's a lot of areas here where we are making sacrifices, we are making trade-offs. So to the extent that we're spending money in one place, that means we have to, we're foregoing something or cutting something in another place. We should certainly not be making any payments to any outside group without a contract. Let me say that again. There should not be any payments to any private entity or outside group without a contract, for which there's no accountability and no transparency. These are difficult decisions. There's not that anybody takes any joy in having to make trade-offs. Again, I go back just to a simple example from earlier tonight it's a consent calendar item, but we're asked to make a trade-off between a tree trimming truck and changeable message boards. Changeable message boards are the things you put out there on the street to let people know, hey, curfew in effect tonight, or public event happening tonight, or stay away from downtown LA, or avoid Valley Boulevard, large crash, or large crash on 10 freeways, things like that. Those are the kinds of things that obviously members of the public would benefit from, having that kind of real-time information. I believe the police department's message board is on Del Mar, if I'm not mistaken, or I saw it there not too long ago, just across the street from the post office. In any case, the point I'm trying to make is that those are the kinds of things, that obviously any city should have. We're now foregoing those purchases because of, and it's not due to COVID or anything like that, but it's just a trade-off of one piece of equipment for another. So when you extrapolate that to a larger picture, we are making trade-offs, within the budget, even though, and again, I appreciate the efforts to make it balanced. So having said all that, I think it's about as good as it can reasonably get, because we don't really have. There's not really any way of controlling the uncertainty that we're facing and the lack of visibility. So we gotta, again, I just go back to my overall point that we will need to be flexible and adjust probably during the course of the year. But certainly we should control the things we can control, and in that vein, it's about having at least having accountability and transparency where we can, and therefore I think that the budget is reasonably good. I just worry, I think we need to be concerned that we don't fall into the same trap that put us into a general fund deficit in the first place, which is having overestimated revenues, and then spending against assumptions that turn out not to be true. So having learned that lesson, and having been failed by staff in the past to alert us to situations where that was taking place, we will be vigilant on that issue, and I think we will need to make adjustments during the course of the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Harrington.
So thank you, Mayor. I'd like to defer for a minute. I'm still actually making a few notes, so someone else
Okay.
can go first.
Sure, Vice Mayor Lau.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Well, this is a very difficult time to come up with the correct budget. As you know, the gas tax is pretty low. Nobody's driving right now. And the business tax, sales tax, most of the restaurants are just to go. And so they're doing maybe 25% of a normal volume. The only places that are very busy are supermarkets. Unfortunately, even though their sales maybe increased 30%, but unfortunately, most of the food items are not sales taxable. So they're not paying a lot of sales tax. And comes to the property tax, because this COVID-19 might prolong a long time. And especially we passed the ordinance that we allow the tenants of 6 months to repay back the rents they owe. And I'm sure this is going to a huge impact for a lot of landlords, not just residential, but commercial also. So I don't think they can last, 6 months period. And if they don't have the revenue coming from the tenants, how are they going to pay the property tax? Of course, they just let it go. And maybe we will see a lot of foreclosure next year. Another issue is the San Gabriel is the tourist town. You probably don't know, but it is the tourist town. We have many tourists coming from Asia, and we have a lot of investors coming from Asia. They invest in our hotels, invest in our restaurants through, it's called the EB-5, investment, and they can gain their permanent residency. But all these put in pending, maybe it's all gone. So, and another one is the tourism. We try to promote tourists coming from other parts of the world, but unfortunately, we're unable to do that. For past couple months, the tour being canceled is like 650 tours being canceled, and that equivalent of billions of dollars. So we're hit by this COVID-19 seriously, especially San Gabriel. We need to recalculate those numbers because I don't think those numbers are truly accurate. We're talking about the hotels, right? The Sheraton Hotel being closed a couple months now. They might open in July, but where are they going to attract the people that are coming to San Gabriel? very few. And Hilton's trying to keep their employees. You know, I think they have to pay $400,000 every month to keep their employees. So they keep the hotels open. But right now, the occupancy rate is only 5%. 5%. You know, there's a talk that, well, they might lower the room rate to $50 a night. In the past, they charged $200 per night, and they don't take any discount tour packages, you know, because the discounted, they just don't take them. And, you know, for the past 14 years, they're doing very well, but not now. So, and also there's competitions. New hotels in Montauk Park and other cities. And of course, you know, there's Curio new hotel right next to Hilton. So we're all fighting for the same source of the tourists, but the tourist numbers, I don't see for a short period of time. No, it's not going to happen because this COVID-19 will last a while. You know, it's not just, it's going to disappear in a couple months. And even we try to open all the businesses in St. Gabriel, a lot of employees, they don't want to work. Okay, one of the reasons is because they're afraid of catching the virus. And number two, they're on EDD, they're getting $600 per month for an employment check. It's more than whatever they used to make. So employers have problem recruiting people that work for them. So it will be a slow process. However, you know, we think, oh yeah, we're gonna have this 79 million. Yeah, this is great. You know, we could really get that kind of budget. That's fine, but in reality, I don't think so. So I appreciate the staff that putting all this time and work, but I guess we just have to revise it every single month. If we can get the actual numbers, and we'll just go ahead and revise them. But there's one thing that I really against it is the animal control, okay? If you visit all the animal shelters nowadays, there's nothing left in the animal shelter, okay? Because people just adopt them, and you want to increase 32%, that's 86,000 for what? To protect coyotes? That doesn't make sense. So that's something we need to talk about. 86,000 is a lot of money. So I don't know who's responsible for that answer.
Councilman Liao, I'd be happy to answer that. This is Mark Lazaretto. We will be bringing that back very shortly with a revised contract to the City Council to discuss that in depth. But we have shopped around to make sure we are getting the best price that we can for the City of San Gabriel. It's a required expense of the city, as you know. And we checked with every other service provider that we could think of in order to make sure that we are getting the lowest price. We had just yesterday, or it could have even been this morning. These days seem like weeks, so excuse me if it was longer ago than that. But we got a price from Pasadena Humane Society, and their estimate for our city was over $500,000. The county is more than the $330,000 that San Gabriel Valley Humane is charging us. And while I agree with you 100% that it seems like that is an exorbitant cost for the amount of work that has been going on for the last couple of months, Mrs. Rigney was able to show where her expenses have gone up over the last year. And we haven't audited her books or anything like that, but we feel like her costs are legitimate for the low number of cities that she serves and the administrative costs and overhead that we have to spread amongst ourselves in Temple City. So my short answer to your short question is we will be bringing back for a full discussion on that item. And in that contract that will be coming before you, the last version that I saw that was tentatively agreed to by San Gabriel Valley Humane Society, they were agreeing to a 2% increase for next year, for the following year. So if that is the case, then we have 2 years to figure out a long-term solution. And if we can make it a lower cost between now and then, we definitely will.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Harrington?
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the extra time. I wanted to ask Mark, I know we did our one-on-ones. Were any of our suggestions or things that council members requested sent out or a part of this package at all, or should we just go through those one by one?
There were areas that we heard consensus, as Councilmember Pu alluded to, and TOT and a couple of other revenue sources we heard that our projections were overly optimistic, so we revised those down. Anything else that we heard from each of you, we incorporated as we could, but there were items that we would need to talk about tonight because because those would be items that would need to be reached consensus in a public meeting in order to put into the budget. So some of them were included in the reductions in the revenues and the reductions in the expenditures.
Okay, so I'll just recap some of the suggested changes that I made in our one-on-one. Number one was our, I don't remember the exact page because I had it marked, but I have it, I was looking for it. We had 15,000 for the strategic plan. And I think I brought this up with you that last time we did our strategic plan, I mean, yeah, it was fine. We have a very well-developed one now. I don't believe we need a consultant for that. I think that's something staff can facilitate. I think we have the talent in-house. I just don't see that as a necessary expense right now. So I'd like to see that just removed from the budget. And if you think it's necessary later, we could come back and make a special request for it. I just don't, to me, it's an expense that we shouldn't program in. I just don't see a need for it. So that was one of my suggestions. I don't recall which page. I thought it was on city council, but I didn't see it when I was looking through.
It's actually in the city manager's budget. It's on page 2 of the city manager section.
Okay, got it. Page 2. And are we going off the budget book or should I go off the PDF numbers? Because I put everything to the PDF numbers now. That's one of the things I was doing.
Sorry, yeah, we're going off the hard copy budget book. That's what I believe everybody has in front of them.
Okay, because I was using the PDF simply because that was the presentation material in the agenda item, and it's different than, so if the public tries to follow along, it's a little different. I'll try and do both. So that was the strategic plan. So then if we go to the city council budget, page 2, there's quite a few changes I'd like to see. Number one, our travel budget right now is set at $9,000 per council member. I really think that should be significantly reduced. I'd like to see it cut down to about $3,000 per council member. I don't see a need to, it's council expenses, not only travel, but it's everything. My idea there is if we are going to be revising this, I think we should have a lot less just what I would call fungible money, but we should, as council members, should be making requests to the rest of the council to get things approved, just like a staff member would or someone else. I think 9,000 is just a little high to be programming in. So I'd like to see that reduced to 3,000 per council member, because that should cover any incidentals. We already get reimbursement. That's a little, for like internet and things like that if we need it. So I really think that's something that we could reduce. Like Jason said, we should not, and I think he repeated it twice, have expenditures without contracts. And I agree with that. I think we should have contracts with everybody, but I would take it a step further. We should not just blindly send money to these national organizations with what I see as no benefit to the city and the residents of the city. And by that, I mean some of the local ones as well. We have 16,000 for the League of California Cities. We have 3,300 for the National League of Cities, 20,000 for SCAG. I'm sorry, 4,300 for SCAG. San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments, 20,000. To me, these are no contract. We just hand them money. They're unelected. It's a bunch of elected officials getting together, making regional decisions. They're not actually representing their constituents anymore. They're representing the region, which I have just a fundamental problem with. If we're going to have such a big organization like that, it should be elected to that organization and not a city. I can see where could be to me, I've always thought there's an easy step to not making fiduciary decisions for your residents when you're making those decisions. I think we cut a lot of money out of there. So if you on page 2, you can cut 16,000 out, 3,300 out, 20,000 out, 4,300 out. And I don't think one member of San Gabriel, one resident, would notice a lick on that. They wouldn't even notice. That money is money we could program somewhere else. So I'd really like to see that reduced as well. Let me go next. So I mean, right there we have a significant budget savings that can be easily programmed out. And if we decide later, hey, let's do these, we've been programming these routinely almost as a matter of reflex, not a matter of thinking. If the average person knew what these organizations did, more likely they wouldn't think the city needs to belong to them. So I really think that's not benefiting the average resident. So next is another thing I'd like to see added to the budget. It's way towards the back under the community development, page 5. We've budgeted 40,000 for the historic preservation ordinance implementation. I don't know what we're going to do with $40,000 because by all estimates, that's not enough to really do anything. So we might as well not budget it at all or budget it sufficiently. The last 2 years, we've budgeted 30,000. They've used 0. So we basically have carried it over and now it's 40. I can foresee them using 0 again because it's not effective. I would like to see that bumped up to 150,000 and actually implement the ordinance that's been there for 3 years. Right now, we're sitting here twiddling our thumbs. We're doing nothing. After 3 years, we have no teeth in this ordinance. We have no historic districts. We have no historic neighborhoods. Why have the commission if we're not going to fund it? I would propose we either fund it or just fold the commission. Honestly, it's like, why do this? Let's give it some teeth. And we've had several comments from the public in the past, none on this budget. But I think it makes sense that if we're going to do something, let's fully implement it. Let's fully fund it. We patted ourselves on the back and gave us all, we got all these awards and said, hey, great, you have one of the best ordinances. It's nothing right now. It's literally nothing without funding. It's not doing anything. And we have talented people there. We have people that really want to do something, but we're not funding it. So I'd like to see that go up. I had a few more I think we talked about, but I think if we're going to be reviewing these kind of month by month or even quarterly, I think we can go as needed. But I think those are things we shouldn't have just programmed reflexively. I would like to have more transparency and actually when someone wants to make a request, and I know a lot of other agencies do this, they go to the council and say, I would like to attend this conference, please approve. And then the other council members vote on it to see whether it's worthwhile or not. And you pretty much have to justify what the educational purpose is or what's the purpose or the benefit to the council or the community. So I think just having a budget out there of 9,000, and if you look at historical use, I don't think anyone's even come close to using the 9,000. So I'd like the council to consider that. And the rest of mine, I'll just hold back until they come up later.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Ding?
Yeah, okay. I agree that the other council member, vice mayor, the concern regarding our estimate for the revenue. I think that we already talked to the TOC and the sales tax, but even the property tax, I just worry about it, because the maybe really affect our economic. We don't know. Just worry about it. It's if still happen for the 2008. Okay, the property value is dramatic. The going down. It's really effective the property tax. But we still estimate like 5% more compared with the previous year. That's I very concerned about it because this looks like most revenue is have the $6 million. Our right now the balance is only 140,000. Easy to maybe the revenue will reduce the 140,000. So just worry about it. Maybe our budget still not attain the balance. And like also the business license. So looks like it's reduced like 17%. That one I also really will worry about it because I saw maybe a lot of business maybe still going to close down. Okay, I don't know how many business really what's the percentage that business will be can reopen it. Yeah, and also I agree the Councilmember Pu and the Harrington say anything with contribution the organization to have the contract and the accountability. So they really make sure they really do something help our city. Okay, we have some measure to know that. Okay, well, all the organization, yeah, and for the Councilmember Harrington regarding our council member expense. Yeah, so I think I agree. So we can reduce because the COVID-19 it's hard time. So we can try reduce more some reasonable number. Okay. 3 or 4,000 compare with I saw the extra expense like mostly 3,000, 4,000 or 6,000. So maybe we can think about that too. Okay, and I also hear about it. Even like Judy say, probably they will watch up for the weekly. They like it. And then you internally do the watch the weekly for our revenue and expense, and monthly we should watch carefully anything like hopefully we still in the COVID time. After 1 year we can do the balance. Yeah, like I say, I like to keep like every full employment. We can have everything. It's the city can have the good service. We have the public have service can do the good job, everything. But right now it's a critical time. First of all, I think we have to consider how to balance our budget. Then we can do the future. So to help our city to more better. Yeah. That's my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank
you,
you. So I just want to emphasize to my colleagues that we need to present a balanced budget. And as it's been said, this is really a work in progress. It's very fluid. We didn't know about, we knew about COVID, but now we have the movement, which is creating the curfews, which is not helping our businesses. There are just so many unknowns, and we don't know if the curfew, how long curfew is going to last. We don't know how long COVID is going to last, if we're going to have our second wave. But we need to present a budget. And I know I appreciate the staff having contingencies, significant contingencies in case we are overestimating our revenues. For that reason, because of this, because we're all facing this fiscal cliff, it doesn't matter what municipality Some are already over the cliff. We're not there yet. That was one of the reasons I have shared with the city manager that we need to get monthly briefings. Even if there's no change at all, or if we're just right on target, we need monthly briefings on this budget. Just like Julia mentioned, they just got some new numbers last week. This is what we're dealing with. It is a very fluid situation. No one can predict what's going to happen in the future. I mean, everyone has their, predictions, their little crystal ball, but no one really knows. We just have to brace ourselves, and hopefully, we're being as conservative as we can. So I just want to emphasize, we do need to submit a budget. That is very, very important. Regarding some of the suggestions that I heard, the regional organizations, I would like, before we start, not being members, I think the regional organizations provide value, but I don't want to be cutting them across the board. This is something that we would really need to look at, because what I've heard in the past is that there is value. And now working with some of these regional organizations, it's important to be a voice. We are just San Gabriel. We are a very small city, but as a group, we're much more powerful. We have a stronger voice. So I think there is value there. And before we start cutting them off, I think we need to look at it carefully. And I would like to get feedback from staff, because I know staff also gets support from them. The budget for city council, clearly I don't see any of us attending any conferences, or I don't even think we've attended conferences all year long. The 9K has been always a number, it seems like, that's completely overstated. So, I understand we can cut that, but again, I'd rather look at this again at some other time before we start kind of dilly-dallying here and there and everywhere. The historical commission, you're asking $110,000 increase. Well, we need to find some expenditures also we have to reduce, or at least geography, back to moving it from one item to the next. I know the strategic plan, there was 15,000. I thought we had discussed that already and had agreed that's something we wanted to bring back. I'm not completely confident that our staff can also add that to their load when we're already talking about not filling positions. That we're already at a very, we're at the bone marrow right now. We're not adding positions, we're holding on to them. And that's part of our contingency. I don't see us even being able to fill those positions, but fortunately, we're holding off for now. And so, I'm not sure how to proceed from here, but I'm hoping that if there's some areas that we want to look at, we can have, more, start drilling down a little more carefully before we start slashing here and there. I agree on the regional organizations. I think, but we need to have further discussion on that, because those are longtime allies. They're advocacy groups. We need them now more than ever. And if there is any doubt, then let's talk about it before we start slashing them. And if we want to increase the historical, well, we got to find, what are we going to remove? What are we going to cut? City council is not going to be enough. And so I'm not sure, Mark, how we should proceed with this, because I think we're still, I know you had your one-on-ones and you were hoping that you could address everyone's concerns. Is there something in particular we can do to try to see if we can get this approved, or we can just come back again and, next week and have our special meeting and add this to our special meeting for next week?
Happy to do, thank you, Mayor Menchaca. I'm happy to do whatever works best for the council. I haven't heard, more than one or two comments on anything, not three comments. So either we achieve consensus on cuts or keeping it the way it is tonight, or we bring it back on another night with more information on whatever the council needs, or we adopt the budget as is, and then if we're going to be monitoring it on a monthly basis, come back from time to time with that information and make those cuts in the future. Some of these, as an example, the council budget, as you said, you're not going to realize those costs anyway because those conferences aren't available. So some of those would be not just symbolic, but it would also be a way to provide further contingencies by removing those from the budget. And you may not be able to spend those anyway. On the other hand, it's kind of like the community engagement budget that we talked about. If it's there as a placeholder and things open back up and we need to be meeting more rather than less to try and figure out revenue and other sources, it's there for you if it's available. So I know I didn't help much with that. We're available to do whatever the council wants in order to make that decision. Perhaps we can open it up to other council members to see if there's a motion or a direction on how everybody wants to go. But as staff, we stand by to help in any way we can.
Okay. Well, Councilmember Pu, I think.
Yeah. Mayor, thank you. If I may make a suggestion, I think I would prefer if we brought this item back and we specifically went over each issue that each council member has raised, so that we have, again, I think I understand, and I started off by saying that this is a planning document and it's not, so, and whatever we do, it's not going to be set in stone. We will need to be flexible. We will need to make adjustments. However, we should try to control what we can control. And it seems that some of the issues that were raised by all of us on the council are issues on which we could at least develop a greater degree of certainty. I think, for example, cutting the council budgets for conferences, and that's a no-brainer since like that's not even a possibility at this point in time. But the other items are substantive policy decisions, and I feel like they would require more substantive discussion than we're really prepared for at tonight's meeting, because for example, some of the issues that Councilmember Harrington raised, I'm just hearing about for the first time right now. And I don't know if staff would even be prepared to, respond to some of the other issues and questions that we've raised tonight. So we still have time. The budget doesn't need to be passed till the end of the month. We have already special session scheduled for next Tuesday, and if that session is only, for an hour, we could perhaps have another hour's special session for budget, or it could be placed at the beginning of our next prior to our next regularly scheduled council meeting, which would be on the 16th, I believe, unless there's already a closed session or other special session scheduled at that 5:30 time slot prior to this, the 6:30 regular sessions. So that would be my suggestion, is to allow staff the opportunity to be able to compile the list of the issues that we've already discussed, and then also have a chance to process it, have some responses, and then for us to also be able to think about them and then come back together to see if there's a majority of us that can agree with respect to each issue, and then bake that into the final budget and adopt that as a budget. Again, knowing that anything that we do is probably going to be subject to change. Thank you.
Okay. That's
Madam Mayor,
one
may I ask
suggestion.
a quick question? If we do that, which is a great suggestion, if we do that, we have our Tuesday meeting set for next week. We are not going to have a discussion on the Athens item because of timing issues, and so we'll be bringing that back in a couple of weeks. So next week, all we have is the CDBG discussion on how we allocate those extra CDBG funds we receive from the CARES Act. And I would hope an hour or a little more would be enough to figure out how we're going to spend those funds. So that's the only thing on that agenda. We can go as long as the council would like on that agenda. The downside to that is the report for that would go out tomorrow. At the latest, we try and get those out by Thursday. We usually try and get those out by Wednesday, but we could hold it off by Thursday. If you needed much in the way of staff research. Obviously, that doesn't give us a whole lot of time to do that, but we can put together the list and continue to do research throughout the week and even into Monday and have information for you at the meeting for discussion. The other alternative is to bring it back on the 16th and then have a more thought out staff report, but then that puts you up against only one more week after that to adopt. So those are the two options, and they're not mutually exclusive. We can start on next Tuesday and then bring back whatever we need to bring back the following week. So just my thought, just to make sure that I'm not overselling our ability to do something by Tuesday, that it would be not fully vetted if we do something by next Tuesday.
How much time would you need? I mean, would Thursday make a difference? Next couple of days?
For that special meeting?
Yes.
I think it will depend on what the council's asking, and we can do a quick research on those regional agencies and provide, a summary of those. The other, I think it's just teeing it up for council to have a discussion. So we can compile everything we heard and everything we heard in the one-on-one meetings and put that all into a report and have that to council for consideration. And then we can just go item by item through that list. And I think you'll find some consensus in areas very quickly and a couple of areas where you probably won't.
So I'm sorry, so is Thursday a better day?
Sorry, Tuesday would still work. I'm sorry.
Okay, so
Yeah,
Tuesday
would still work.
would still work, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments, Vice Mayor? I see your mic is on.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would prefer June 16th because I want to give more time for staff to look into all these things that we talk about. Because it's just a couple of days, there's not much they can do, because you're talking about, well, how are they going to get the real gas tax, the real sales tax and property tax and all that. So give them a couple of weeks, to work on it. It doesn't hurt us and we still have time. So I would recommend June 16th.
Okay. Well, any other comments from council members? I mean,
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Councilmember Harrington.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mark, and I think I agree with Chin Ho that for the longer things that are hard to determine, but I think this might need to be broken up into two meetings. That might make sense, so we can get rid of some of the ones that are more, like you said, that more likely to have consensus, and then some of the ones that take a little longer or we don't get consensus, so we need even further information. We have two meetings to spread it over, so we may start a topic and not decide on the first meeting or not even approach some of the topics. But I would like to say that this budget, I would say, process that we've developed, this kind of shows a little bit of a weakness in it. I like the one-on-ones, but in the past, we thought there were too many budget meetings. We would have 5 and 6 and 7 meetings, but we often hammered a lot of these out way up front. And I've been talking about these agencies and these organizations and also we belong to. For a long time, I've been saying we're not getting any value. So that's a policy decision. It's a policy judgment. I think these are things that we shouldn't have to put staff on the spot, but honestly, most of these organizations, to me, they're not providing any value to me as a council member or me as a resident. I just don't see it. And I'd really like to have it explained to me how some people getting together downtown and making housing decisions helps me. It just doesn't. In fact, they often make decisions against San Gabriel, against our interests. And whether we have a voice or not, it doesn't matter there. They don't care. They're not going to take San Gabriel into account regardless. So I think the process can be, maybe either we start a little earlier so that we aren't up against the time crunch. Maybe next year start a month earlier. And I realize there's a lot of staff time involved, and it's really just getting things in a little earlier, and it obviously will affect your accuracy on projections because they don't come in. I understand the whole process, but we have to find a place where we're not feeling up against the wall to make a decision. So I would suggest at least the next 2 meetings if necessary.
And Councilman Harrington, I apologize for bringing the council to this point so close up to it. But with the issues, it was as quickly as we could get a budget together this year with the realistic numbers. Our
Well, I'm
intent
not
for-
blaming. I'm just saying it's not not at all. That's not my point. So don't take it that way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. For next year, and our plan for this year was to have at least one other meeting before the one-on-one so that we could have a couple of group discussions on more strategic thinking before we put the budget together.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Mayor Menchaca, we're not able to hear your comments. I'm sorry, we're still not able to hear.
I guess Chin has to take over.
Okay, I'll take over. Oh, you can talk now, right, Mayor? No.
Not hearing anything.
Can I hear you? So I'm gonna move in motion. Now let's table it till June 16th. Our next city council meeting. To bring back this, revised budget.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment.
Okay,
I would support that motion, but I do think that perhaps then, as Councilmember Harrington suggested, being able to perhaps go over the quote unquote easier issues on next Tuesday, since we're already meeting anyway, I think would be helpful so that we at least narrow the field of anything that needs to be really substantively discussed on June 16th.
yeah, Councilmember Pu, because we still have two meetings, June 16th and another one. So I think
Can
we
you
have.
hear me
time
now?
to revise. Yes.
I'm
So
back, Chin. I'm back, so move over. I only heard the tail end of Councilmember Pu, which I was going to propose too, is having it, as Councilmember Harrington suggested, over a 2-day period. Take the easy ones next week, and then the ones that need a little bit more drilling down the following week.
And I think I agree with that also because that gives us an opportunity to approach the more, I'll say, in-depth or difficult policy decisions. We can still discuss them, but we just don't need to go into that much depth. And we can kind of give staff a little bit of direction, and maybe we need further information.
Yes.
So Vice Mayor Leal had made a motion to just defer till our June 16th.
Well, my main concern is our staff. Do they have enough time, to prepare anything for next Tuesday meeting? So
Vice Mayor Leal, no, I was going to explain. However, the amendment that I suggested was just to basically adopt what many of us have been saying, which is still having the session on the budget next Tuesday on June 9th as well, to be able to narrow the scope of issues that we would, and as Councilmember Harrington suggested, to provide staff some direction or guidance as far as what we would ultimately need for June 16th budget adoption.
okay.
And,
So I
and
want
what I heard from Mark was that that would be sufficient time, correct, Mark? You could do some of it on Tuesday and then the rest of it the following week?
Absolutely. I do want to be clear, though, that some of this, we already have the best information we're going to have by the end of June, which things like gas tax and other revenue sources. So I don't want to set us up for disappointment in thinking that in 2 weeks, we're going to have better numbers for some of the revenues. Some of those are going to be council deciding if we need to be more conservative based on the information we've already given you. We can bring back any other information you need, and we can have a discussion on Tuesday about items that you need further information on. But I don't want you to think that we'll come back and say, okay, here is a better source of of numbers for a lot of the revenues. We may get something in, but we're using everything we have at this point. Julia, feel free to correct me, but that's the impression I'm getting.
That's correct, Mark.
Okay, great. So then, so do we still have a motion on the floor that Councilmember Councilmember Lau made, and you made an amendment, Councilmember Pu? Is that correct?
Has that amendment been accepted by Vice Mayor Liao?
Yeah, so, if the staff can prepare something for next Tuesday and we can send out notice to the public that we're gonna do this, we have enough time, so that's fine.
Okay, so that's a yes. So we have,
Motion as amended.
okay. So let's take the vote.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Councilmember Pu,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Liao,
Aye.
Mayor Menchaca.
Aye.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Great, thank you. Next item.
New business, adoption of an ordinance establishing non-exclusive towing service franchises. Presentation will be made by Police Chief Harris.
Madam Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the council, you have before you a staff report for adoption of an ordinance establishing non-exclusive towing service franchises. The city of San Gabriel currently operates its police-initiated tow service through an informal agreement rather than the industry standard franchise agreement. While the informal agreement for the city that the city has used in the past has been satisfactory, the benefits of the towing service franchise agreement include a reduction in city liability and exposure, better control of the service provided to the public, and a method of cost recovery for city administrative costs. These agreements ensure appropriate authorities and responsibilities are identified for the security of vehicles and other property, in addition to administration of police-related vehicle impounds, storage, and other tow-related operations. Overall, the franchise agreement would ultimately ensure the quality and professionalism of the towing service representing the city. Staff recommends the council introduce for first reading the attached ordinance for adoption is Ordinance 664 into the City of San Gabriel Municipal Code, establishing non-exclusive towing services, franchises, and authorizing entrance into towing agreements with qualified service providers. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, so I will ask council for any clarifying questions before we open up public comment. So Councilmember Ding, any clarifying questions?
Okay, I try to understand the non-exclusive towing service, that's the current towing service is operation by our police department or somewhere else we have a contract.
It would be done under a contract.
So currently we just exclusive with a contract or non-exclusive contract.
We currently don't have a contract.
Don't have any contract. Okay, but just like a police department do your department do yourself, or that's I want to understand. Yeah.
No, we still operate with the local tow service, Dixon's Tow Service in our city. And the police department initiates the tows, storage, or impounds, and we work with the local towing company. What we're trying to do is just professionalize that service with an agreement so that we can hold everybody accountable.
Okay. All right.
An agreement to hold everyone accountable.
Okay. That's important. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Harrington?
Thank you, Mayor. I think for me, it's I like the idea of having multiple agencies service, right? Multiple companies service, because it just gives us a little bit more flexibility. I know a lot of other agencies do that for police departments. And I think it's healthy just for us to be able to have different vendors, especially on something like that. So I like it. I think once it gets into the operations, is something I'd like to get some updates on, like maybe quarterly or yearly, like if you include it in some of your updates. But I like the concept. I appreciate the work that went into that. I've been waiting for that for a while.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Pu?
No questions. Similarly, just I think this is a no-brainer, and thanks to the staff for bringing it back.
Vice Mayor Lau?
Just quick verification. So when we send out the RFP, how are we going to decide which provider that we want? Or how many providers do you want?
Well, I think ultimately we're going to be able to make that selection based on them meeting all of the requirements that we need. I think the determining factor, if all things are equal, it's going to be boiled down to the service that is closest to us that can provide the most timely service, if all things are equal.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to thank the chief for bringing this back and for formalizing it. This is one of many areas we've never had an agreement, and we should not be dispersing monies, taxpayers' monies without an agreement. So I want to thank you and Mark for really making that a priority. I know you've been working hard with a number of organizations to formalize agreements and have accountability. So thank you for that. So at this time, let's see, the time for public comment on this item is now closed. Assistant City Clerk, please read any comments received on this item.
Mayor, we haven't received any public comments for this item.
Okay, so now that we can proceed with council deliberation. Councilmember Ding, any further questions, discussion?
Yeah, I already got the answer. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Harrington.
Nothing further, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Pu.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Okay, Vice Mayor Lau.
Nothing for me, Mayor, but I'd like to move the staff recommendation.
Okay, and I'll second it. Assistant City Clerk, please take the vote.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Councilmember Pu,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Liao,
Aye.
Mayor Menchaca.
Aye.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Next item, please.
2019 General Plan Implementation Annual Progress Report, January 2019 through December 2019. Presentation will be made by Management Specialist Mark Gallatin.
Good evening, Mayor Menchaca, Vice Mayor Liao, and members of the City Council. Mark Gallatin, Management Specialist for the Community Development Department. And it's my pleasure tonight to present to you the 2019 General Plan Implementation Annual Progress Report. We have a very brief PowerPoint presentation for you. Our first slide will just share some facts about the annual report. The annual report is required of all California cities by Government Code Section 65400A2. The report is to be presented to the City Council and then submitted to the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, or OPR, documenting the status of our general plan and its implementation progress. The deadline for submittal of the annual progress report is April 1st. This year, however, because of the coronavirus pandemic, OPR is allowing cities to submit it later after it has been presented to the City Council. The Planning Commission received this report at their May 11th meeting. They affirmed the information in the report and they recommended it be forwarded to the City Council. To highlight the city's efforts in implementing the general plan in each of the 11 elements, the report lists each element along with the corresponding projects that are completed to date and ongoing and potential projects that will implement the goals, actions, and targets of that element. Each project also cross-references the specific goal, action, or target in the general plan that it is helping to implement. So you can see in the report, we've covered all 11 elements. Our next slide just has some random highlights from the report. For example, last year, The city partnered with neighboring cities in creating a 4-mile car-free network of streets to celebrate active transportation at a Ciclovia event. This was one event or one achievement that helped us move forward the goals of our mobility chapter of the general plan. On the economic development front, those efforts moved front and center with the release of an economic analysis and market study of the Mission District and with the creation of the San Gabriel Tourism and Marketing Improvement District. With regards to public safety and community facilities, law enforcement and the community came together to celebrate the opening of the city's first satellite police station at Marshall Park. And finally, with regards to infrastructure, the southern part of the city, they benefited from new accessible ramps, sidewalks, curbs, gutters, and driveway approaches, improving accessibility and safety for pedestrians in those neighborhoods. Our recommendation tonight from staff is that Council affirm the information contained in the General Plan Implementation Report for the period January 2019 to December 2019 and recommend that it be forwarded to the State Governor's Office of Planning and Research. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the Council might have.
Thank you, Mark, and welcome again.
Thank
Mark
you.
Gallatin, I better say last names. Our city manager is very talented, but he can only do one job at a time. Okay, so let's start with the clarifying questions first before I ask for public comment. Vice Mayor Lau.
Thank you. Hi, Mark. Mark Gallatin. I wish I could see you. Yeah, I haven't seen you for a few years now. Okay, my question, because I think we need to verify this because you're going to send it to the governor's office. Number one question or number one things that he wants to see from City of San Gabriel is affordable housing. Okay, and so what is the status of our affordable senior housing on the corner of Del Mar in Maine? Because it's over, I don't know, we gave the contract to this company. We haven't heard anything. So what is the status of that?
I am going to need to defer to Assistant City Manager Chaparian to answer that question, Mr. Vice Mayor. I will say, though, that you'll see on page 3 of the report tonight that under the housing chapter of the general plan, we issued 34 permits for new housing units last year, including 21 for ADUs, which were deemed affordable to low-income households. You may remember about 5 or 6 weeks ago, I came before you and presented the housing element annual report, and we talked a bit about that at that time. But specific to your question about that one project, I would need to defer to Ms. Chaparian to answer that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I will definitely step in. Vice Mayor Liao, we are actually currently working on the draft exclusive right to negotiate agreement with the developer. And I anticipate bringing that item to council for further discussion sometime this summer. Given the current events that have transpired in the last several months, we've had to kind of strategically place items on the agenda. That's an item that may need more discussion. We're going to take some time with council. I think it's important since we do have council members who have not gone through the redevelopment process. It would be important to educate and inform the entire council about what these types of agreements may entail, and then give the council an opportunity to review the draft agreement, which we're currently working on with the developer. So it's coming. We anticipate bringing that to council sometime this summer. In addition to that, we are also looking at, I reached out to the county to see when the county has an opportunity for us to discuss potential funding sources, because the development of that magnitude would require various funding sources. So it's still in the works. We anticipate putting items on the agenda for discussion in the next few months. Good question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Armene.
Okay, Councilmember Harrington.
Thanks, Mayor. No further questions, no clarifying questions. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Pu. Councilmember Pu? Oh, there he is.
Hello?
Oh, yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, is it my turn?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, my earpieces is somehow acting up. I don't have any clarifying questions, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Dean?
Yeah, okay, just the report, we still continue like hosting Lunar New Year, Cinco de Mayo, right? And the ice dumpling, so it, the reason COVID-19, we still continue can do that, or that's my concern.
Well, I appreciate the question, Councilman Ding, and of course, that's going to be dependent upon the orders from the county health officer that are in place at the time those events are scheduled for. Currently, of course, as you know, large gatherings are prohibited here in Los Angeles County. We cannot predict at this point, what will be the conditions in, say, October when the Dumpling and Beer Fest typically takes place. We have to hope for the best, of course, that things have improved vis-a-vis the virus, but it is really unknown at this time, and we really have to follow the lead of the county health officer.
Okay. So that's meaning we're willing to co-host, but still need to follow the county the order, right?
Yeah, I think in all four cases of the events that are cited in the report there, these have now developed a bit of a track record, a bit of a tradition now in our community. And, were it not for circumstances beyond our control, like the COVID-19 virus, we would certainly be hosting them on an annual basis.
Okay, understand. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I have no clarifying questions. So now the time for public comment on this item is now closed. Assistant City Clerk, please read any comments received.
Mayor, we haven't received any comments for this item.
Great, thank you. So now we proceed with our deliberations and discussion. Vice Mayor Lau, do you have any further comments?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Harrington.
I'm good, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Pu.
Same here.
Councilmember Ding.
Uh,
Do you have any more comments, questions?
oh, no.
Okay, so do I have a motion to accept the staff recommendation?
Motion to move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Now we need the vote. Assistant City Clerk, please take the vote.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Councilmember Pu,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Liao,
Aye.
Mayor Menchaca.
Aye.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Next item, please.
Public comment. This is the second opportunity for members of the public to address the City Council on items of interest that are not on the agenda. Comments will be read for up to 3 minutes. Assistant City Clerk, please read any comments that have been received.
We have not received any comments at this time.
Okay, next item, City Manager's Report.
I think I've said it all tonight, Mayor. I have nothing else to report. Just happy to be here.
Okay, it's almost 10:20, so we're reaching that the bewitching hour, 11 o'clock. Okay, let's see, council comments and conference meeting reports. Let's start with Vice Mayor Lau.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, during this difficult time and all these, it really hurts my feeling, because I think this is very sad. After 50 years, more than 50 years, civil rights movement, we still have to face this, injustice and racial discrimination. But I just remember Dr. Martin Luther King say this: It says, darkness cannot dispel darkness, but light can. Hatred cannot dispel hatred, but love can. So I think, we just have to listen to this great man in our history and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Very, very touching. Council Member Ding.
Yeah, okay. For the right now tough situation, COVID-19, and then plus right now have we like a peaceful protest, but we don't want violence. Okay, so thank our city team, the Mark and the Chief Harris and the fire department, the Chief Warris, they all do the very good job for keep our city safety. So so really thanks for all of you doing that, so that our resident can feel our San Gabriel it's a good city we have. Okay, keep going to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Harrington.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Liao's comments. I think in a time like this, we all need to just kind of embrace our families and our friends and think about how we can help each other rather than try and divide each other. I think it's really good that some of these things come to light, just not the way it's come to light, but we really need to work on unifying and not dividing. We're all in this together, so I think we really need to what I would say is turn off our TVs for a while and talk one-on-one with people. Thank you. That's my comment for tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember Harrington. Councilmember Pu.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would echo the comments of my colleagues here and just sincerely hope that this is truly an opportunity for real change. And I think that real change does start with each of us as individuals and change within our hearts that will translate to change within our institutions. So other than that, I just urge everybody to continue to stay safe and that again, this is like a crisis in the middle of a crisis. And so we're dealing with several layers here, and COVID-19 response is still ongoing, although seems to be pushed to the second page of the news lately, and we will need to continue to deal with that. Actually, both of these issues for many months and years to come, probably. So thanks to all of you, my colleagues here. I mean, this is stressful, and also to all the staff. It's trying on all of us, and I think that again, I think that we've done very well in terms of adjusting and adapting and responding to all of these things that have been thrown at us. And I for one am proud to be part of the team, and also that feel that our community is being well served by our staff, our police and fire in particular at this point in time, and our city administration. So thanks to everybody.
Thank you, Councilmember Pu. Well, I also wanted to add, well, first of all, start by thanking the staff and our first responders. It's been a very trying time. First, we had COVID, pandemic that no one's really experienced in our lifetime. And then now we have the movement, and it's a very powerful movement. And our staff is there, just not missing a beat. And there's just so much taking place that I just don't know how much to say, how grateful I am for them being on the team. And then I have my colleagues, they're all stepping up, they're all doing their part. We all have a part here. And at the end, it's, you know, how can we best serve our community? How can we keep everyone safe and informed? And so I want to thank my colleagues for that also. You know, this is a moment in our lives where we have to kind of take a step back and kind of take stock of ourselves, of our decisions, our beliefs, and our actions. You know, the moment's now, and we have to decide, you know, how are we going to project our voice? You know, how are we going to decide, you know, what kind of stand we're going to take? And I know people are doing it in a variety of ways. They're donating money, they're donating time, they're walking, protesting. And I just hope that each one of us find that place in our hearts, you know, where we feel like we're participating and we're making a difference. But more importantly, we're taking a stand. So I encourage everyone to try to, it's a moment of inflection, you know, how do we want to look back and remember this moment? You know, what did we do to help move this country, our city, our state forward? So anyway, I won't preach anymore, but it is a very emotional moment. It's a trying time, especially for our children. Well, I have older children, but I still call them children, but it's a tough time. It's a really tough time for everyone, really at any age. But I will conclude my comments. So let's move on to the next item, closed session. We have none. And the next regular city council meeting will be held on June 16, 2020 at 6:30. We will have a special meeting next week, and we will have an announcement on that. But for now, we are adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here tonight.
Good night.